Hey everyone, Jason from the future here. Just did that podcast with Mal Emery. Thought I'd jump on and do a quick little producer note before we get into it. That was Mal's first podcast ever. So he's been retired for like over a decade and he doesn't really do anything in the public eye. And, you know, it was hard to get through this episode in just a couple hours. We budgeted for 2 hours, then we made it 3, and then the whole thing ended up taking 4, and then we cut it back down to around 3 hours. So we had an idea for how this podcast would go before we started, but as soon as that red record button got hit, it just went down a completely different path, which is what can happen with podcasts sometimes. And Mal, he's never been a podcast guest before, and he just wanted to give and give and give. He wanted to just share so much value and so much wisdom, and it was hard to stay on track at times. I'll say that. And really, we could have talked for 12 hours. Mal and I, we have so much to talk about. Mal has so many awesome stories. He talked about the story of how he took steel blue boots from losing $500,000 in the red pretty much, every month to then becoming a $250 million company. He talked about how he made $600,000 selling from stage in 1 hour right before Donald Trump got up after him to speak, and about the pressure of that, and just crazy stories like that, but also in between, so much value jam-packed in there that you're going to be able to take and utilize in your own life and in your business. And Mal was my very first mentor in business. We talk about that, and he had a big impact on my journey. He's someone that I really look up to. There's not many men in my life that I look up to. My dad, obviously, number one, and Mal, I would say, is a close second. You're going to see a lot of similarities between me and him, especially in our vernacular and the way we talk. And if you've been a long time listener, which first of all, thank you if you have been, and what an awesome journey it's been. But you're going to see a lot of things that Mal says in this interview I have said before, and I've taken that from Mal over the years. So I was one of his last students before he retired officially as a coach. And yeah, it was just a really cool full circle moment to be able to have him on my podcast, and this being his first podcast ever. So you are going to see us bounce around a lot. We're going to talk about one thing and then go down a different rabbit hole altogether. But that's just the chaos of it, and we do love the chaos. And it was a great episode. It was a great honor to have Mal on there. I was very, very happy with how it went. It was a lot of fun. Mal just shared so much value. So you're going to get so much out of this episode, and I'm really, really excited to be able to share this with you. He's a multi-best-selling author. He's had 2 world bestsellers. Like I said, he's spoken on stage with Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, Richard Branson, Gary Vee, all kinds of incredible people. He just had an awesome journey. He's built, bought, and sold over 40 businesses, and he's had a hand in helping businesses like Steel Blue Boots go to $250 million. And just incredible guy. 3 hours really wasn't enough time to really scrape the surface of what Mal Emery has to offer. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. I hope you enjoy it. I'm very, very pleased and honored to be able to share this with you. And 100 episodes, we did it. We finally got here. And if you've been a long time listener, really appreciate your attention span. I know attention spans are shrinking more and more by the day. And yeah, hundreds more episodes to come. Let's go to 1,000 next. And let's just get straight into it. Thank you so much. Enjoy. All right. Episode 100 of Self Made. I've got a very special guest here with me today. This is one of my first mentors in business. And when I started this podcast 2 years ago, he was actually the person I had picked in my mind to be the guest for my 100th episode, if I ever got to that. And so we're here today, and I'm very pleased and very grateful to have Mal Emery on the podcast today. Thanks very much for coming, Mal.
Thank you, Jason. It's nice to qualify for being the 100th. I'm not sure what the pay is like. I hear it's pretty low, but I'm just joking.
We can talk about that later.
No, I'm just joking. No. I don't want anything. I just want to help you. You're a fantastic young man going places, and any way I can help you out, it'd be my great pleasure.
I very much appreciate that, Mal. And I guess we should talk about sort of how we met all those years ago. So when I first met you, I think I would have been about 16, and I rocked up to one of your business mastermind sessions with my dad, who was one of your students at the time. And I was in black hoodie, black track pants, and black shoes. And I think the first thing you said to me when I sat down that day was, "Where would you be if you weren't here today? Prison?" And that was my first encounter with you. I don't know if you remember that, but
not.
I sure do.
Of course not.
So from that day on, I was like, wow, this is Mal Emery, and I kind of like this guy. And so every month on the first Tuesday, we would meet in this room. You would impart with us your knowledge in business and marketing. And the more I came, the more I liked it. And eventually one day I actually started my business in one of those rooms, and I had the idea for enhanced cleaning, which 6 years later is we're doing multiple six figures a month. And it's been a wild ride, and it really all started with you in that room, Mal. So thank you. And I want to introduce you as well, because I think most of the people listening won't really know who you are. And it's hard to find much about you online, despite how prolific you were in the business world. So if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself and talk about some of your accomplishments over the year, because you do have a very long rap sheet. So I'd like people to know about you.
Simple question with a complex answer, to be quite honest with you. Firstly, thank you for that. The person you really need to thank is your father, Graham, who was wise enough to understand that whatever you were up to with your hoodie and your bogan lookalike, you didn't fit, I suspect you didn't fit in too well where the education system was concerned. I'm just guessing.
Correct.
Of course. But yeah, correct. No great surprise. And that's why I had a little dig at you at the time, obviously, with a bit of humour involved in that. But your dad was the wise guy who actually was smart enough to recognise those things in you, and then to put you into an environment where the penny might drop. Now, for a lot of people, that penny never drops. Now, your dad, which all parents, in my opinion, is you push your siblings in a direction and then you pray, okay? Because you can just imagine why.
That's more or less what he said to me as well, because I attribute all my success to my dad, really, because if it weren't for him, I don't think I ever would have ended up on this path. But when I asked him, I was like, weren't you concerned about me? Because I'd left school when I was 14. I think we both left in year 9, you and I.
Yeah.
And I asked him, weren't you concerned about me not being at school for 4 years and not having a job? And he said, all I could do was bring you with me to these events and just hope the penny dropped, exactly what you said. And
there you go.
It did.
Yeah, see, I've got a crystal ball. And none of that surprises me. And he did you a great service. But in speaking to others that might have been in the room, what we have to understand about people and their psychology is, for a goodly percentage of it, they're never coming on the journey that you have come on. And that doesn't make them wrong, and it doesn't make the me's of this world and the people I've helped right. It just means that's a reality. It's about mathematics. Now, what I've always been, tempted to be fascinated about is what makes the penny drop. I remember a seminar I was doing one day, and I just said to the room, tell me what's been the most important thing you heard that in essence made the penny drop. And one guy said to me, you are not your mistakes. That was one of my statements. So whatever you've done in the past, you are not those mistakes. Now, as someone helping people and teaching people and wanting them to be more successful in business, because that's what we're about. This is not a weight loss seminar. How would you pick that? How would I ever pick that statement was the one thing that, and I know you've told me what I was doing when the penny dropped for you. I was doing a thing called litmus tests, and I was explaining how I bought, built and sold 30, 40 odd businesses in my business career. Bought, built, started and sold. And I'll explain all that to the folks today. But, it was in that environment at that moment that's when something lit up. And
I had, sorry to cut you off, I'd been in these environments for a while at that point. I'd been to some seminars with my dad because he was right into business as well, and he owned his own optometry practice. And I went to a lot of them, and for the most part, I went just so I could get away from not doing anything at all. And
it wasn't until that exact moment when you talked about the litmus test that I had that penny drop moment. And that's when I immediately just opened up my laptop and I just started drafting ideas for what sort of business I wanted to do. So you're absolutely right. But I also just want to quickly sideline and just say a few things about you just to give some context to who you are as well. So you've been dubbed the millionaire maker in Australia.
No, multi-millionaire.
Multi-millionaire maker on average, yes.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of your students who are multi-millionaires and they speak very highly of you. You've shared a stage with Donald Trump, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Richard Branson, Russell Brunson, Dan Kennedy. Who am I missing? Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki. The list goes on. It's pretty crazy. You've built, bought and sold, 40 businesses now?
Close to. I haven't counted.
You're in your 70s, we'll say early 70s, and you still own businesses to this day that are thriving and doing well, which we can maybe talk about later as well. But you've also had the Southern Hemisphere's largest business coaching school, which you also built and sold as well. And that's the community that my dad was a part of, and that's how I sort of came into this world. So I just wanted to give a bit of context for your background and who you are.
Sure, and highest paying coaching program.
That's
Some
the
people paid
important
me
distinction.
$100K a year.
For the ROI they got out of it, not a big investment, all things considered.
Well, yes, of course. Because I sell money at a discount in a vacuum. Now, what the hell is that? So what that means, and I advise everyone to do so, including yourself, this is high-level thinking and behaviour.
I remember the first time you said this in one of those mastermind sessions, I was like, what the hell is this guy on about?
I know, well, it's been said to me in the last year or so by someone, he was in the room also. His name's Lee Farnell. And he said, what the is that? So money at a discount. So if you pay me 100 and I show you how to make 500, that's money at a discount. Okay? And obviously people paid me, so I was able to achieve that sort of outcome for people. There was more under that. You know, the average cost was about $25K a year and somewhere up to 50, depending upon the level of my involvement that they wanted. But the 100K got me and got me working on their problems. And, you know, to put up with that aggravation, you need a number that's appropriate for that. And to me, it was 100K. So
It's a nice round number.
Well, it is. It rolls off the tongue very nicely. It wasn't the average client. Please don't misunderstand me, but, you know, it was there when I wanted it. So, yeah, money at a discount in a vacuum. Now, vacuum means you have no competitor or none that they can point to. So they had no choice, in a sense, other than to pay the money. So that's a strategy, a tactic. It's actually a principle that you should consider in everything you do. How can I sell money at a discount in a vacuum?
To essentially create yourself a category of one. It's a positioning tactic, you'd say.
I love your language. It's on my list to talk about category of one.
Is it okay?
Yeah, because I think I've got, because, you know, I want to see this be worthwhile to the folks that are listening. And I asked you who's here, and you said that it's largely cleaners, people cleaning houses. So I did some thinking about that and reflected on some of my presentations in the past and some of the things I've done in the past. And I've got a bunch of things that I think will change their world here today. So that's quite deliberate on my part. It's called reverse engineering in another language. So that's part of what we're going to hear.
It's going to be an interesting concept to deconstruct as well, because one of the biggest things that cleaning business owners say, or people before they get into the cleaning business, is that it's too saturated and it's, if anything, a category of too many. And so the idea of becoming a category of one and positioning yourself against all the other big players in the industry and somehow making or commanding higher prices despite people thinking that everything is too overvalued and that you can't make more than $30 an hour. That's going to be a tough pill for some people to swallow and kind of wrap their heads around. But I also had that notion, that preconceived notion before I got into the business. And a lot of those limiting beliefs were kind of taken down by some of the stuff that you had said. And again, it was like these penny drop moments where it might just be one sentence or one quote you'd say. And that took me one step closer to breaking down these walls and just getting my foot over the line and starting. But I think it really is mindset. It sounds cheesy and everyone says it, but it's one's mentality towards their own business that's usually the detriment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book called The Millionaire Next Door, and it's well worth a read. It was written some time ago, but of course it's as current today as it will be in 100 years' time. Essentially, the statistics may alter slightly, but only ever so slightly. And it basically says that for the average guy who makes it, they do it in ordinary, everyday, boring old businesses. Okay, so you can look at this as a boring, everyday, average business. Or
as you put it years ago when I was in that room, an unsexy business.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that sort of thing I might say. But it creates some sexy money.
Exactly.
Because we all know someone in a category or industry that's is doing extremely well. And they're the people you want to be looking at and copying for sure. And that leads us to one of the commonalities, and there's a bunch of questions from folk out there that this speaks to. And if you think about what I got right, let's dwell for a moment on where I came from. And essentially I got fired at 21 by a multinational company called ACI, Crown Corning. And I and the office girl and the storeman, who had 6 kids and lived in Forestfield, got fired on the same day. It was called downsizing. It's not new. You can't do it like that anymore, and my sales manager was put off, and they amalgamated another two divisions. They were downsizing because business was tough or whatever. In my world, I was the last salesman on and the first salesman off. I found myself going home to my wife that night. We'd just built a house and land in High Wycombe for $20,000, house and land. And I announced that at 21, 22, that I'd been put off. And we had about $500 in the bank, I think, as I recall, which wasn't nothing in those days, but it wasn't a lot either. And she said, I don't think you should get another job. I think you should start your own business. Now, I pretty much thought I was pretty clueless and would have been probably the last person to consider it. So she's the first one that saw something in me that I hadn't seen in myself. And with that, something in me went into top gear or another gear, shall we call it. And the point was I had a house and land that I had to pay for. She desperately wanted to have children, which did eventuate. And I needed to provide for my family. That was the thing that drove me. It was providing for my family. And in the end, in our street, we were the first one with a swimming pool, the only one with a boat, the first one with colour TVs, the first one with games that the kids could come and play, and the local kids lived at our house because I found a way to get ahead, and that's what we'll elaborate on.
And that was the hardware store? Correct.
So I went, the first thing I did is I went, because I knew a guy called Owen McGrath at the local hardware store, which is High Wycombe Hardware. It's only just closed. Now we're talking about 50 years ago, and his sons have just closed the door. This is how spectacular my choice of mentor was. Okay, I got it really right. And back in that day, hardware stores shut at 12 o'clock, and essentially you're slamming the door in people's faces. I know that some of the listeners will find that hard to believe, but that's what happened. And bread wasn't baked on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you couldn't buy fresh bread and all sorts of things that people listening to this couldn't conceive.
Different world.
A different world, yeah, different time, different world. So Owen McGrath stacked wheelbarrows and all this stuff on the pavement out the front. In fact, you would trip over. Inside the shop, it was stacked to the ceiling, and you walked around just trying to find something, tripping over everything. But he had everything. It was there somewhere. And the thing about Owen, and he had a girl working for him called Peggy, and Owen and Peggy were the only ones that could find anything in that place. And I had bought a wheelbarrow off him, some hoses and asbestos fencing to put up, because I'm a young kid trying to get ahead, and I did it all myself for my family, and put down a bore and a few other things like that. And I went and knocked on Owen McGrath's door, and I said, Owen, I've been fired. He knew who I worked for because Anderson Agencies, United Hardware, Doug and Anderson was the group. And I provided the glassware for them on behalf of Crown Corning, and I'd go around and check their stock and top it up and so on and so forth. So I'd met Owen, and of course I'd bought from him in the local hardware store. So he knew who I was, and we sort of hit it off a little bit at the time. And I went in and I said, mate, Owen, I've been fired. Would you help me start a hardware store like yours somewhere else? Now, I didn't know where that was going to be, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. But if there's something I've got right in my life that might be of interest to you and others, is I have an ability to ask the right questions. Okay, and it's a blessing. I don't know where it comes from, but that was the right question to the right person. And Owen McGrath turned around, and he's just passed away, actually. He just attended my 70th, which was late because of COVID. He was very unwell. Prostate cancer had come back and was going to get him, and it did get him. But I have much love for that man. And he went on to be the mayor of Kalamunda for many years, a much-loved mayor, very practical. So the same guy I asked for help is the same guy that sent me on my way. Now, I went and tapped on Mum's door, and I said, Mum, can you mortgage your house, and can I borrow $10,000? And for her youngest son, my mum didn't have money, but she had a house that was from an inheritance from my dad from the UK. Worst house, best street, or best suburb, really, Netherlands. And Mum mortgaged a house for a younger son. And Owen spent my mother's $10,000. I wheeled big trolleys around United Hardware, Anderson Agencies, and Owen spent my mother's money. I understood for some reason that I wanted every cent that Mum had to be spent on stock. Why would I want to do that? Well, I'll make it easy. That gave me a chance of making money if I put my money into stock. I painted the place. I found a location in Swanview, and I started Swanview Hardware at 22 years of age. And essentially I laid the tiles, I painted the walls, I welded up fixtures and fittings. I've always been pretty handy. I had a brother-in-law that gave me some help, Colin Smith, and we wheeled all that stuff in and opened the doors and sort of said we're ready for business. Now, something else happened inside of me that I can now put context around. That was just a question I think every business owner should ask, and that is, which I know to this day is more refined, and I'll give you both versions. Version number one, how can I get them to shop with me as opposed to Midland Hardware? There was no such things as Bunnings. Midland Hardware was it.
Yeah, well, no one would even think about starting a hardware store today.
Oh no, that's
Those
what
days are gone.
You've called it a jalopy, not a racing car. So with my model of buy, build, and sell and start, you don't get into jalopies. by definition, you've got to know what a jalopy is. And again, that's covered in that particular book I referred to earlier on. Get into a racing car, not a jalopy. That definition has changed quite dramatically over the years, of course. And you asked me the other day, what's my racing car? You didn't quite use that languaging anymore. You didn't know the languaging you used, but that's what I was getting at when I was talking to you. And maybe we'll go there today, I don't know. Off I went. The question you ask yourself, every business owner must ask this every day. And I'm more refined with the question because when I did this, I didn't know the word marketing till my early 40s. I'd never read a book in my life until my early 40s. All of it was intuitive on my behalf. It was about survival. Nothing more, nothing less. It was the need to feed my family and put food on the table and to make their life as pleasurable as it could possibly be. That was my role. And with that, the question becomes this. Why should they shop with me, my cleaning business, as opposed to each and every other competitor in my category or niche? Now, if you can't answer that question, you don't deserve to be in business. Now, I have had the great pleasure to ask that question many times, and I get these sort of answers. Oh, I do a really good cleaning job. Well, you idiot, that's mandatory. In fact, probably by law.
That is a prerequisite of the business. Yes.
Correct. Oh, yeah, but my point, the reason they should shop with me is because I do a good cleaning job. Sorry, buddy. Bah. You're out the door. It's not good enough. It's not going to cut the mustard. And someone is always going to clean better. Okay? So the first question you must answer is why should they shop with me as opposed to each and every competitor in my industry or category? Now, I ask that question. I used to ask it every single day. But it might help if I give you some real good context here about how all this works. So many years ago, in 1996, in fact, Stephen Gillespie.
Yeah, my insurance broker.
Mine too. And the great man he is. Wonderful man indeed, in more ways than one. But importantly, Steve and I had met at a seminar because at this stage I wasn't doing seminars. I was checking him out like your dad. And we met in the toilets. And strangely enough, and he said, how you going? I said, oh, yeah. I said, you're Steve Gillespie because he played for Swans. And I hated him because my side was Claremont. And he continually punched people in the back of the head. And in fact, his knuckles are like that because he did. And he was a hard man. And I said, oh, I know who you are. And he said, oh, yeah. And we made a friendship that day that has never, ever ceased to be. And we go out to dinner with our wives and things like that. And more importantly, being a footballer, he knew a lot of people. And one of the guys he knew was a guy called Ross Fitzgerald, who played for Swans and Perth, and also Donny Holmes, who played for the Eagles ultimately. And anyway, I may get this wrong, and Ross, if you ever hear this, I do apologise, but I'll get it as close as I can to the story. And it's a common story because it went on national TV, so I'm not making anything up. So I don't think I'm crossing any line here, and apologies in advance if I am. And essentially, as I understand it or recall it, Ross was working in a clobber-type store where they sell stuff for the tradies. And if I'm right there, his father-in-law sold that business, and Ross couldn't see himself staying in the business under those circumstances. And, Ross and a bunch of his mates probably got together and said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to start a business that sells work boots. Wonderful thought. The problem is that was probably hatched over a couple of bottles of red wine, or I'm guessing, and a bunch of grog or something like that, because that's when most of these things happen. I'm not saying this one did, but either way, they went and got investors, some of whom I know, including, I think, Donny Holmes invested is also in that, and a bunch of others I'm aware of. And they put a whole pile of money on the table, and they built a factory in Bassendean-ish, not too far from Swan Districts Footy Club. And essentially they learnt how to make work boots. The trouble is, I think it was 6 months down the line, they were 500 grand in the red or something similar, and struggling. And it was quite concerning. I remember seeing the look on the guys' faces. They were really concerned about all of this because a lot of people had put a bunch of money in, obviously. You see, they knew how to make good boots, but they didn't know how to sell them. So here's a lesson for everyone. There's a comment that used to often come in my environment. Your dad will remember it. And my members say, what would Mal do? When they're faced with a situation in their business, which you get every day, that's one of the things they affectionately like to say to themselves, just in case, because I used to say to them from stage, shave your head, walk with a limp if I do, just in case it helps. Okay? I'm, again, being sarcastic.
So what did Mal do in that situation, and what was the name of that business, and what did it become?
It's still Blue Boots, Footwear Industries. It's one of the most successful businesses around to this day, and they were able to dominate that industry, but it wasn't looking like that. And I've got a wonderful testimonial to this effect from Ross. And so what I did is Ross Fitzgerald, Steve Gillespie introduced me to them and said, you've got to talk to Mal Emery, because I'd helped Steve. So after we met in the toilet in the eastern states, he asked me to come and look at his business. And I did one thing that found him a ton of money overnight. I won't go into the detail here, it's not necessary, but that was just one of the things I did. And also sold off, and I know you'll like this, the parts of his business that weren't valuable, and he sold it to another younger agent who was happier. That was the low-ticket stuff like car insurance and all that sort of rubbish that, is low-end, bottom-of-the-barrel stuff compared to what Steve was getting into, like insuring my businesses today, So he introduced me to the boys, and I went off there and I told them to get everyone in the room. I wanted the investors in the room, and I'm only a young guy. It's 1996. I'm just starting out in terms of coaching other people, or not long into the business of helping others. How did that come about? Because people started asking me how I was buying, building and selling businesses and knocking on my door. And people would come and sit in my bricks and mortar businesses. So that's how it eventuated. So I said, get everyone there. I want the storeman there. I want the salespeople there. I want the, storeman, the guys, someone responsible for manufacturing and so on and so forth, the CEO, and marketing guys, the graphics people. I want everybody in the room. So it was one big long table, and there was tons of people around the room. And I took the seat up the top of the table, as you should do, okay? And I asked them the most important question, arguably, that I've already revealed. And I said, this put context around the content. And I asked them, I said, why should I buy your work boot as opposed to each and every other work boot on the market? And they looked at me as if I came from outer space. And someone said, but the work boots are comfortable. And being a little sarcastic, I said, well, I can just imagine how uncomfortable work boots would sell on a mining site if you actually made uncomfortable work boots. So it
It's
wouldn't.
the equivalent of saying, because we clean good.
Yes, I know, it's exactly that. So, and if you didn't, you don't deserve. And as opposed to the boots, you don't deserve to sell a boot if they're not comfortable. Again, I said, I'm not here to judge your product, but comfort is mandatory to me. Okay? So I said, okay, what else? We're getting somewhere now. This is interesting. And someone said, oh, hummed and hawed, and someone said, oh, as I recall, the work boots don't fall apart. And I said, well, work boots that fall apart wouldn't sell too well, would they? Being sarcastic again. And in that moment, I said, okay, I just need to wind the tape back a little bit. Not only was it, why should I buy your boots? When they couldn't answer the question when I asked them initially, I said, okay, what's your client's biggest fears, frustration, wants, desires, and needs? See how I missed that out? It's a long time ago. And there's been a little red wine under the bridge since then. So firstly, why should I buy from you? Secondly, when you don't have that answer, you reflect on your buying client's fears, frustrations, wants, desires, and needs. And that's when they started to say, oh, the boots, don't fall apart and they're comfortable. They needed that prompt. They didn't have that knowledge at that point, which I prompted them. And at the end of that conversation, as we've had it, I said, I know how to fix your business. Now, the room just thought, this bald guy is definitely from outer space. He's asked, 3 questions or whatever it might be. What makes him think he's got an answer when we've been here flogging our guts out, going backwards? And I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to guarantee the comfort and the quality of your work boots for the wearer for the life of the wearer. Now, that was met with stunned silence. And I said, I know what's going on. You're all rolling around on the ground. You're falling off your chairs and you're going, oh my God, I can imagine all these work boots rushing back in the door for a refund. I know what you're all seeing. Am I right or right? And without exception, they pretty much agreed with me. Their mind went, oh my God, how can we guarantee that? Well, remember I talked about right questions? In that moment, I said, okay, who in the room is responsible for work boots that come in and are returned for repair or because there's some quality problem with the boot or whatever? And the storeman sort of put up his hand like that, because at this stage I'm a fictional character, I'm up the front of the room and I've invented this character. And he's, calling it as he sees it. And with that, he said, oh, look, I said, how many do you get a month back? And I said, what do you do? So in that moment, he said, oh, I get about, this is a recollection. He said, I get about 6 or 8 back and I fix them or I replace them. No, boys and girls, have you got it? What I'm asking you to guarantee, you're already doing, and the penny dropped. Okay?
So I guarantee that changed their business, and that's the whole reason everyone knows about them, and they're now worth, $250 million or whatever number it is.
Who knows what it is?
It all started with a guarantee.
It changed everything. So you can sometimes find the one thing that changes everything, but what's critical is the questioning that I put them through. Now, I can put literally any business owner on the planet through those same questions and I can stump them.
It's funny because I've had that same conversation with so many cleaning business owners because as you may remember, I introduced a guarantee into my business early days.
I was hoping you'd bring it up.
And so that was the clean of your dreams or it's free. It used to be a lot longer and there were other things in it, but I just distilled it down to the clean of your dreams or it's free because it had a nice ring to it. And that did really well. And it did really well for my business, and my business doubled and tripled in the ensuing months and years. And I would tell people that asked me how they could improve their business and position themselves better and command higher prices. I'm like, you can start with a guarantee. You say you do good work. How about you repackage that into a guarantee that acts as a risk reversal for the customer, which is also as you say, unique customer buying advantage for them to other businesses. And then I met with the same questions like, oh, but wouldn't everyone take advantage of that? Wouldn't everyone just get a free clean? I'm like, that's just not how it plays out in the real world. I've had, I think we've done 20,000 cleans since we started in 2020, and we've refunded under 10 out of 20,000. And we've had that guarantee the entire time. So there you go.
I don't, it's not a fascination to me. It's based on psychology and mathematics. Okay, so figuratively speaking, if we could draw a circle on a page right now and put a line down the middle of it, on one side you write psychology, on the other side you write mathematics. So what you just referred to is psychology of the buyer. Okay? And then, of course, you look at the mathematics, what that will cost you and what it may return you and what might be the refund rate, if you like. And by the way, that is the correct definition of marketing. You won't hear it possibly anywhere else on the planet, but that is what marketing is. It's maths and psychology, or psychology and maths. So let me put that in perspective. If you say, I've got a guarantee for cleaning, and it's the best on the planet, as you've expressed here today, giving you as the example, and you charge $50 for a clean, you're going to go broke slowly. Or if you market your marketing message, okay, which is guaranteed to clean.
Well, the clean of your dreams or it's free.
Or it's free.
That was our big headline for years and years, yeah.
But if your maths aren't right, you actually send yourself broke fast. The other side of that coin, let's say you charge $200 a clean and you don't have a message.
No one ever comes.
Correct. So what's that? That's torture. That's a slow death. So you can have a slow death or a fast death. Either way, you must cover maths and psychology, but they go hand in hand. And you know, and I know, that being cheap is a race to the bottom.
Well, Dan Kennedy says there's no strategic advantage to being the second cheapest, but there is in being the most expensive in your market.
Absolutely, for lots of reasons. But it is still better when you can actually point to the reasons why. There has to be an answer to that question. You must have an in-the-can answer to why you are more expensive. So one of the things was money at a discount in a vacuum that I mentioned earlier on. Who else are they going to go to that know what I know?
And you did that with the hardware store as well when you first started?
Well,
did you have a guarantee in that business?
Interesting loop you've tied into this conversation. But I wanted them to hear the Steel Blue Boot story because it was appropriate. And it's appropriate for this industry because it's appropriate for every industry. But, I hadn't read a book, mate. I hadn't done a thing. But what I did is I said, how can I get them to shop with me? And I didn't have tons of money. So I bought 4 cans of Mission Brown and I stacked it 4 cans high. And I got a bit of cardboard and I wrote $9.95 or whatever it might be, but $4.95. And I bought flat plastic, which is a ceiling paint these days, and wash and wear for the wall, flat, low sheen, blah, 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 blah. And I stacked 4 cans high. and I put a sign on the top of them. I put a metal bin out the front and I stacked Spear and Jackson rakes in them, and I put a sign on the bin that said, $6.95 I think I sold them for, and I wheeled them in and out every night. And I put paint rollers and a roller thing in another container I bought and stacked it out the front. So I was a marketer, and I just wanted them to shop with me. And down on Morrison Road, I welded up a real estate sign, and I put an arrow on it, and it was a red and white sign for good reason, most recognised of all, red background, white writing, hardware, and an arrow. I was letting people know I was there, that were going to drive down Morrison Road to Midland Hardware. Okay? So here we are. I'm a little marketer, but I didn't know the word marketing, but I just wanted them to shop with me. And we did okay. And what ultimately happened is I sold that in 13 months. Now, bear in mind, Owen McGrath kept High Wycombe Hardware for another 40, 50 years, and his sons bought it off him. I met them, they were that big, like babies, Thumper and Matt, okay? And to this day, we still talk. Thumper brought his dad along to my 70th, as it would be. He done well. And so there's lots of ways to skin a cat. So Owen, probably I know he bought several blocks of land, and the block of land behind him in the strip shopping centre, he bought his store. He probably bought a few of the other stores. I don't know the detail. But there's nothing wrong with what Owen McGrath did staying there. But I did something most people don't do. And I discovered something. I discovered how a kid that failed nearly most things at school or struggled like hell to get out of there can get seriously rich. And what it was selling my success to someone that wanted it more than me. Now, I didn't know the language that I know to this day, but I sold my success. I sold Swanview Hardware to a sergeant major or something similar, who was retiring but wanted something to do. And he lived on West Swan Road. And as I recall, and he came along and paid me $32,500, I believe.
And so in 13 months, you tripled your investment?
Well, you could say that, yeah, if you're talking about the 10K.
Yeah, and then so you were able to pay back your mum and then keep a little bit extra on top.
Well, I'll tell you pretty much the exact number.
Yeah.
So I sold myself to the sergeant major who wanted my success more than I wanted it. This is the classic case. So I paid everybody back, paid my mum back in 13 months, never to borrow it again, and had $18,500 in the bank.
Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1 trillion today.
Who knows? Who knows? But here's what I know. My house and land was 20 grand.
Yeah.
Now, here I am. I'm 22 or 23 or something like that. It was only 13 months. And I've got enough to pay off my house and land. And I thought I was going to pay it off for 25 years. But, of course, I didn't do that. I put the money to work and I bought Wanneroo Hardware. I think I called it Northern Districts at the time. I couldn't get Wanneroo.
And you did it again.
And I did it again. And this time I won the War Premier paint competition for the state because I stuck my cans of paint to the ceiling. Okay? I am responsible for painting Wanneroo Mission Brown. I'm the guy. If you hate or remember Mission Brown, it's making a comeback, by the way. I'm the guy that did that. Okay? So are you seeing the loops?
And you did that over and over again as well. It's unusual because it usually takes about a year for people to even figure out what they're doing in a business. And you essentially condensed years and years of growth into 3 to 6 months. And what was your quickest turnaround in a business? 5 months. You bought a business and you sold it 5 months
later. Would you like
for a
that
profit.
Story?
Was that coffee?
Hasty Tasty.
Yes, yeah.
on
But
pastry.
you've done that 40 odd times now.
Yeah, look, it might be 35 or something. I don't know.
It's just,
Let's call
it's
it
a little bit crazy. But it's no coincidence that you've been able to do that so many times. I just can't fathom it, buying and selling that many businesses. But the Hasty Tasty one was a really fascinating one with how quick that turnaround was. And I remember you can talk about the new food concept. Was it that place?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll let you tell that story because it's a good one as well. And that can tie back into the cleaning business too.
Well, we don't know when the penny's going to drop for the guys listening. And we don't know what the thing is going to be. So I'm giving real world, nothing coming out of my mouth, not based on the real world, and working with my clients and spending my money or their money. Okay, so this is the most important person you can talk to. Who did I go and see? Owen McGrath. Who thinks that was a really important, fantastic decision? And he's in my best-selling world book. And people used to say, you're the guy Mal Emery talks about in his book. And Owen loved that, of course. So one of the secrets is getting a mentor, or more importantly, getting the right mentor. Now, you are the right mentor for this industry. I've seen enough to know that you're going to be a big deal. You're already a big deal. You've already been on national TV. You've been doing this for 5 minutes. As I understand, you won cleaner of the country for the
Australia's fastest cleaner. More recently, though, we won Business of the Year along with 5 other awards. And apparently,
how old are you?
24.
Mate,
A little bit younger than you.
God only knows where you'll end up, quite frankly. So if anyone listen to this that's part of your program in one way, shape or form, and if they're not, get involved real quick because, you've at least had the wisdom to invite me in here today. So,
and look, a lot of it's me, obviously, but a lot of it is also just knowledge that has been passed down from you and other mentors I've had as well. And so people that have listened to this podcast since the very beginning will know that I've referenced you several times, and I've just thrown in quotes that you've said to me that have always resonated with me. And I think that's the importance of a mentor, that these things have stuck around with me for so long, and these principles that I've carried with me to this day that I'm now teaching other people as well.
Purveying. Yeah. But
Yes.
there's a big one in there, okay? Most people want to invent fire. And the reality of all of this is someone's already invented it, you tosser. You want to get shot for the arrow holes? Be a pioneer. The equivalent of that in business, 50% fail in 5 years. They think they're so bloody smart and they don't want to take advice from the right people. But remember I said choose the right mentor. That's critical, all right? So I used to run into this all the time, and I fire them. I don't mess around. If I say from the stage, if you think you're smarter than me, go somewhere else. I'm not interested in trying to convince you differently. I'm going to shake your hand and wish you well, and I'd rather you didn't come anywhere near me again, okay? Because you're already too smart. So if you're going to be a problem helping you, don't give me your money. I don't want it. That's called takeaway selling.
One of my favorite things, and I'm sure you've gotten this a fair bit, is a cleaning business owner coming to me saying they need help to grow their business. And then when I offer them some sort of marketing advice or solution, I've had people come back to me and say, I have a degree in marketing, so that's not what I need help with. And so I'm like, okay, Godspeed to you.
Yeah. Well, PhD, piled higher and deeper. MBA, more bad advice. Now, don't get me wrong. When I get cut, I'm going to Joe Costa-Rich. I really need him in that regard. But by and large, I've had that many PhDs in my room come and say, in one week with you, one day with you, I learned more than you can possibly imagine. Now, a long time ago, I did a deli in Darling Ridge, and I doubled the size of it, and I could explain that whole story, which is incredible for the folks listening. Again, what I did and the principles I applied. But what I didn't know in the area was a marketing lecturer at the Murdoch University, as I understand it. And he saw me turn a whole shopping centre on, because rising tides lift all boats. So the Coles liquor store went through the roof, the butcher went through the roof, the hair salon went through the roof, the video library went through the roof. I took them all with me. And if you like, I can elaborate on that story. It's a fascinating story.
Well, I'll quickly add into what you were saying. You had PhDs coming up to you saying they've learned more in one day than 5 years in uni. And I think it was you that I got this from when you said, you've got two schools of learning. You've got the school of hard knocks.
Correct.
And you've got the school of prior learning, which is essentially what a mentor is. So you can do it yourself, and you can go through 5, 6, 10 years of trying to build up a business and falling over and picking yourself up and doing it again. Or you can go to someone that's already done that and cut through 10 years of all of that hassle and just learn from someone who's done it before. So I think that's the inherent or intrinsic benefit of having a mentor, is that you can save the most valuable thing, that is time, and cut through all of that.
Well, there's two things there. 96% of people, I'll put it this way, only 4% of people, when presented with a solution to a problem, act on it. Now, did I say to Owen McGrath, don't spend the money on that? No, I wouldn't be so rude or ignorant, okay? And for someone to push you back, fire them. But fire them fast and hire slow, okay? Fire them fast. Do them a favour. Allow them to find someone else that's more appropriate than you, because you don't want the grief, all right? And by the way, folks, don't be that person. So what happened, that lecturer, who I still don't know to this day, sent his students after me, and they came and knocked on my door and said, can we study you? I'd sold it by that time. They said, can we study you for a year and see how you go about things? Now, that can be found online, I'm told, and I have it somewhere. They did some, thesis or whatever you guys call it or whatever, and presented it back to me and I said, what does it say? And these kids said, we have determined that Mal Emery is an entrepreneur in the genuine sense. But what a wise lecturer. He saw the real world, because that environment, the university environment, is based on observation, research and study, which is not the real world. We are the real world. I'm not saying you don't want to have that knowledge, but this knowledge is the real world, because it's based on what's working and what's selling and what's not working. So that's what you really need to know.
Well, I had recently I had some people from, I think, Curtin University. They did a whole research project on me and my business, and that was a strange call to get. Someone just messaged me saying, hey, can I give you a quick call? It's about uni. And then we got on the phone and he said, I want to do this whole research project on you. And I've got, 5 of my peers that are interested as well. And I didn't think much of it. I gave them a couple of interviews and they did this whole thing, and then they showed it to me. And it was kind of like one of those moments where you just wake up and you're in this place and you don't really realize how you got there. And you've now got people that are doing research projects on you. And it all started because you had this idea to clean houses, and then it just turned into this. But there's so many things that happen along the way. And one of the things that I spoke about in that interview when they were asking me all these questions was that I had mentors, and my mentors were instrumental in getting me to where I was. You were my marketing mentor and just overarching business principles. I had Kate Bishop. She was my mentor on HR and culture. And since I brought her on, I've transformed the culture in my business. I've increased the average retention rate of an employee from 3 months to 9 months, so tripled that. And I look back and I'm like, if I didn't make those decisions to engage those mentors and change what I did in my business, I don't think I'd even be nearly halfway through my journey as I am now.
There's something the folks need to know about what you just said. Okay. I was your mentor on marketing and sales. Kate was your mentor on HR and so on and so forth.
And I've had half a dozen others.
Okay. Guess what doesn't exist without the marketing and the sales?
Like business.
No, any of those other people.
Right.
Don't you get it?
Yes. Yeah.
So what comes number one?
Yeah, that comes number one.
Right.
That's why all the other mentors came later for me.
Of course. But it's got to be known and understood. Okay? If you don't know how to make a sale, if you don't know how to market, money loves mastery. In my world, and should be their world, you should always be the CEO of marketing and sales. I don't care if the CEO of the whole bloody company.
Well, that's a big shift that a lot of big companies are making now, is that it's founder-led marketing. They're putting the founder in the hot seat and being the face of the business. Jim Penman, he's doing it for Jim's Group. All these big businesses, they're finally waking up.
Well, that's why I sarcastically saying it's going to be Jim's pole dancing sometime soon. And I want at least 2 franchises for myself to go play with. But
it's very true. And I do it in my own business. I don't even directly connect my business to my personal brand. I just go on social media and make videos of me cleaning. There's no call to action, there's no offer, but it's resulted in 50 million views, and 30% of all leads in my cleaning business come from that.
Which is spectacular.
And so you were saying that even all those years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jim Penman's a fantastic example of what's possible, So one of the things you referred to, and I quickly scribbled it down without my glasses on, and what you're talking about, you have not run this as what's called an incremental business. So an incremental business is, hi, Jason, how are you today, mate? Shake hands. What do you do for a living, Jason? What do you do for a living, mate?
I run a cleaning business.
It's a little bit incremental, but, most people are a mechanic. Most people are a cleaner. You have not that mentality right from the start. You are never going to be an incremental business where you're a hamster or whatever it is, or on a wheel and doing it every day, day after day. And I've looked at the questions that have come in today, and there's a lot of that going on. And in loving, with love and respect in my heart, at the same time, and thank God for those people who are happy being incremental businesses, because they fix my car and service it, or whatever it might be. And I'm glad they exist.
And so how do you define that? Just doing the same thing every day and trying to keep their head above? What do you mean by incremental business?
An incremental business is when you ask them what they do, they say, I'm a mechanic, or the equivalent thereof. When there's much more to it than that. So give you a mechanic story. Her name's Sue Diagua. She came to me. She had 1 or 2 mechanical businesses. I went in there and I created their unique selling proposition, which is what we did for Steel Blue boots and footwear industry, and that became your car repaired right the first time, or it's free. Well, it launched her. The signage on the building, I had a bit to do with it. And we went to Repco and we said, we want to, when people come in with their car, we want to give them free mats and free something else or whatever it might be. And they provided all of those for free for Sue Diagua and her husband, who was a mechanic. Okay? And then we did a bunch of other marketing stuff that drove the business, but she went from being incremental to having other outlets, in that industry. And another guy in Tasmania who popped up recently somewhere, he was interviewed, and he said, and I got a coach called Mel Emery. And that's what expanded my business in the automotive area. So we did a similar guarantee for him back in the day when I, had the large coaching program. He used to fly to my events and so on and so forth. So it's nothing wrong with being incremental. And I'm not saying I'm right or they're wrong. I'm simply saying it's not right for me. I'm saying I want to build it to sell it to someone else who wants it more than I do, which I suppose is Jim Penman in a sense. Because when you do it my way, and I didn't invent it, it was obvious. People have been selling hardware stores forever. Not anymore, but back in the day, it's obvious that, and I want to let them in on a big secret. It's the one thing that changes everything. Would you like to know what that is, Jason?
What is it, Mel?
The one thing that changes everything is understanding you're not an incremental business owner. You're an investor in that business. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I come from the investor in every way, shape and form, and I figured it out at 21 or 22 or 23 and when I sold the first business. That's an investor mindset, okay? But by being an investor, you ask a different question from an incremental business owner who spends their life in tactics. So tactics are, I want more clients, I'm going to run an ad, I'm going to stick something in someone's letterbox, and I want you to come into my business. Well, who gives a toss about you, mate? Why should I? It's not my job to put your kids through private school. That's your job. That's just a tactic. And most business owners are lucky to have tactics. That's how bad they are at this stuff. I mean, how many of these people listening to this do you think have some sort of marketing system?
Very few.
Well, come on. Have a stab.
I would say
5%?
honestly, probably 5% or less.
There you go. So we've just established that marketing and sales is where the money is and nothing else exists. Yet we don't know how to do it and we suck at it. I mean, how bright is that?
The issue with a lot of cleaning businesses as well is a lot of them rely on word of mouth, which is a bit of a catch-22 because you don't have word of mouth when you're starting. And at a certain point, word of mouth tends to dry up as well. And there's no predictability, there's no measurability, and there's no scalability with word of mouth. And a lot of cleaning business owners lack some sort of proven system that they can turn on like a tap to get clients. And that's how they always end up in this position where they know they want to grow the business because they get booked out, which is easy to do. It's not hard to get 20 people that want their house cleaned. And they get to this point and they're like, I don't want to clean anymore. I want to be bigger than this. And they don't know how to contextualize it or say it, but they want to be the investor. They want to be a real business owner rather than owning a job. And so they get to that stage and they're like, well, I want to hire someone, but I don't even know how to do that. And then once I hire that person, how do I get enough work for them to be able to be properly employed? And then how do I repeat that process again and again predictably? And that's where the whole issue comes undone. And people realize they lack a marketing system and then they start to seek out advice.
Well, hopefully, but they have examples of people like you and others, Jims, where it's being done. So there's no argument. In fact, one of the greatest success secrets is finding something that's already working and doing it better. That's exactly what you've done.
All I did was modeled other businesses when I started.
Well, that's because most of it's mapped over. I as I understand it, don't hold me to it, but the McDonald's drive-through was spotted by an owner or manager of a McDonald's who pulled up to a banking drive-through thing and said, gee, I think that'll work in burgers. So this is how it should be mapped over from industry to industry, but it's being alert to possibilities. But I want to pull you up, all right? So shall we finish with investor? Because we haven't. We haven't closed the loop.
Let's close that loop.
So, but I want to come back to your statement about your industry. And I want to change that today. Okay? All right? So, investor. So, I also want to reveal something else because it's important at this point in time. And you know the answer to this question. I'd be very surprised if you don't. And I'll let you steal my thunder. Okay? So, What's the best-selling product or service to sell on the planet?
On the planet.
On this planet. It's the only one with habitation, I understand.
The best product.
Have I stumped you?
If I'm thinking from your perspective, I'm going to say a money-making opportunity, the ability to make money.
Yeah, good. Phew, I was worried.
I was thinking from a cleaning business. I'm like, hang on, I got to step into Mal's mind.
Fine.
And if we expand on that, the ability to make money at a discount.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
But let's make it simple. The absolute best product and service to sell on the planet is the opportunity to make money. Otherwise, the share market doesn't exist. The real estate market doesn't exist. Economies of the world, the exchange of products and services and iron ore and everything, nothing exists, okay, without the opportunity to make money. McDonald's doesn't exist. My God, a world without McDonald's. It does not exist. So there is no valid argument except stupidity against what I just said. And not too many people are going to purvey it in that respect that I have today. All right? The greatest product or service is the opportunity to make money. So the secret is turning what you do into an opportunity for someone else. That's the secret. It's often the secret. So I sold my hardware store to someone else both times. The second time was a ship's captain, and his name was Marinus van der Molen. You couldn't make that up. Walked in the door and said, I'd like to buy you a hardware store. And I said, it's not actually for sale at the moment, but come back tomorrow. I put a price on it. He said, done deal.
I think a good way to tie this all together as well is a lot of people listening to this are going to be like, well, I don't want to sell my cleaning business, or like, how does this apply in the cleaning industry? I don't care about this hardware store. But if you step into the role of investor and you adopt that mindset and you say, okay, I'm going to build this business with the intent to sell it. And if I want to do that, what does that look like? Who would want to buy this business as it is now? No one. And so if I were to clone myself, and if my clone wanted to buy my own business, what things would need to be in place in order for this business to be an attractive opportunity to make money for someone else?
You're way too smart, Jason.
And then when you reverse engineer that question, you get a better business. And even if you don't want to sell it, you've at least made the business more valuable and profitable for yourself.
Well, you've just stolen way too much of my thunder on this occasion. So, but I'll put it a little bit more succinctly. Okay. By the only person you satisfy every day as an investor mindset is the person who's going to buy your business. No one else. So you say, if I do that, will that make someone throw money at me to buy this business so I can lie on the beach looking at young ladies? Whatever your definition is.
That's Mal's dream.
Well,
I'm sure the predominant female audience that's listening has a different goal, but the principle
that's okay.
remains the same.
I'm a male, but
reptilian brain.
Well, yeah. Look, just admiring the opposite sex. There's nothing wrong with that. But whatever thing, I say things like that so people remember it. Okay. Oh, so he wants to lie on the beach. No, I want to sell it to my ultimate buyer. And my ultimate buyer is the person that puts me out of business, not the person whose house I clean today. That's incremental. We're not interested in incremental, but do we have to do incremental? Yes. So what happens is, with my model and what you just described, preparing our business for the ultimate client and asking that question every day that no one else gets to ask without this mindset, we get options. I can keep it and work in it and take a ton of money out of it. I can franchise it and license it to someone else. I can put it under management and keep it and not work in it and still make a ton of money. Passive business, passive income. Oh, I can leave a legacy to my family. I don't care what's on their list. Oh, I can make a ton of money by selling it to someone that wants it more than I do right now.
And all of those options are made possible
by that one thing that changes everything, which is being an being an investor. So what do you invest in? Come on.
What do I invest in?
Well, if you're an investor, what do you invest in to make this happen?
Well, in my own business, I'm investing in systems. That's all I invest in. I invest in systems and marketing.
Yeah, well, you're amazing at systems. That's your magic, and you've got some other magic as well. You systemize things where other people like me might have struggled like hell. See, my philosophy.
That's because my whole goal was I wanted to remove myself from the business, which I've done in one of my locations, and that's only been possible by the systems that I've built.
Correct.
So that was what my autonomy looked like, and it's going to look different for other people.
No, that's a problem you had to solve in order for you to achieve your outcome, which could include selling it one day to somebody. You're not going to keep it for the rest of your life. Okay. So, but number one had to come marketing had to be number one because none of that stuff exists. So you went out and put stuff in letterboxes, as I recall, and offered a free clean.
Yeah.
True or true?
True. First came the marketing.
Right.
And then when I had that down and I was getting all these leads coming through, I'm like, how do I manage this chaos? And then that's when I moved into systems and then eventually hiring and HR, and then it's just one domino after the next.
Wonderful. But you can see it closes the loop. So these guys know now that opportunity to make money is the number one product on the planet, and being an investor, not just an incremental owner. But trust me, my favourite business was the deli, where I worked behind the counter and I won the Cadbury's competition for the state in my first year in it, because I'm a marketer now.
For selling the most chocolate?
Oh, well, I just stacked it to the ceilings, and I mean literally to the ceilings. And the rep loved calling on me, but I doubled the size of it. I'll tell that story if you want to hear it. But it's a fascinating story in and of itself. And Hasty Tasty is another fascinating story, and we won't know what parts of that people are going to go, oh, holy tamale.
I think the issue most people have is they just can't delay the gratification of doing what you're talking about. Everyone's living day to day and just trying to get through the day and get through their cleans and whatever it is they're doing. But if they just realized and they could have the foresight, which is the hard thing, to know that if you just do a few of the right things and you do them well, then over the course of 5 years, you can 10x your business and change your life. Okay, that's the hardest thing for people to realize.
Okay, so all right. How many clients do you have to make a reasonable living in the cleaning industry? And what's the average fee, please?
There's not many. So the average, if it's a weekly clean, it'll be $5,000 a year. If it's fortnightly, you just halve
What's that? Give me a number. Give me weekly.
So a weekly,
break it down to low common denominator.
It's about $140 a week minimum, and you multiply that by about 50. So $5,400 a year. If it's a fortnightly client, so you halve that, you'd be getting around $2,700 a year. So the average, it'll fall around $3,500 for a client. And so $3,500 a year for a client. And so if you just have 20 clients, you're making, $70K. And then if you get another 10, you're making about $100K in the cleaning business. So it's not that hard to get 30 clients.
Okay.
Yet people struggle.
So give me the number and just give me the number. How many clients do I need? How much does the average cleaner want? I promise you, Jim Penman's had this conversation. He's gone.
Yeah. It's 30 because everyone says they just want to make about $100K. So 30 clients.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So 30 clients. What is that worth, and is it saleable?
It depends. If it was commercial cleaning, yes, but a residential business, very hard to sell that because you're just selling a job. And the price that people will want to command for that, it's going to be rivaling a franchise opportunity, which is heavily systemized and just a more attractive opportunity for the buyer. So it is saleable, just not very, very valuable. I've seen businesses that are doing around $100K and they practically just give them away.
How blunt can I be here today?
You can be very blunt.
Okay. So is it a racing car or a jalopy?
Jalopy.
So what advice? What the advice is going to be, there's nothing wrong with the jalopy. If you're making your $100,000 and you're coming home to your family and your wife and you're putting food on the table, nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying this is for everybody.
It's not. No.
Okay? And as an incremental business or as an investor, you want to know what you know and what I know about marketing and business, or someone like me, okay? So either way, whichever way you go where this is concerned, this is required knowledge, okay? We're not dismissing one or the other, but what does one want in life? So my whole stick is autonomy. You've heard me go on. Autonomy means doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, and in a business sense, being paid what you want, and they behave themselves and do as they're told. They're appreciative along the way, and you've met a lot of the people that are appreciative towards me.
Yes.
And I deliberately invented this character that's the no bull guy because I recognised that's what people wanted. I made myself up. I'm actually much nicer than this, believe it or not. Oh, yeah, really. But I knew they wanted so I say to them, do you want a strong mentor or a weak mentor? Because I can wear a skirt if you like, And guess what? They wanted a strong mentor. So I lived into that character and it became a reality. So there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, but at the same token, they need to know that this is where the real money is. And if you want to be autonomous like I do, and autonomy should lead the way, whatever your autonomy looks like. So one of the things the folks should do is they should write down what autonomy looks like. And there's that in my world today, farm with my wife, because my wife was a farmer in China and she wanted a farm, and ultimately I tried to make her dreams come true. I didn't know it included a farm at the start, but needless to say it does. I've got toys, farm toys. I've got a magnificent Aston Martin and a few other things along the way. Lived in City Beach overlooking the water, 180 degree for the last 25 years. Every day's my friggin' birthday. That's autonomy. I don't wait for a birthday, or Christmas Day. It's every day's my birthday because as far as I know, I'm getting one trip around here. So I want to make it a good one. I like not one bad day. I say to my wife, not one bad day, not one. If you do my sums right now, my I had a name for it. It's something or other number. It's just escaping me what it is. But I'm down to, 400 weeks or something crazy based on the average male lives to about 82 if he's lucky. And let's hope I've re-engineered that concept and looked after myself a bit better, and I do it a bit more in style along the way. But either way, you're on the wrong side of it. I call it runway. So everything, when you get here, the conversation changes. So I'm in childcare, as you know, and one of the guy that invited me into childcare saw me on stage with Branson and signed up and came into my office with his iPad. He's an accountant, but he's really an entrepreneur, but he doesn't practice as an accountant and hasn't done ever since I've known him. And he wandered in the door, essentially, and said in an interview with me, he had a particular business at the time, and I said to him, "Tell me the maths." So the guys listening to this, they might think we're jumping around a bit, but we're not. We're closing loops all over the place. Nothing trumps mathematics. Nothing. Remember what marketing is? Maths and psychology?
Yep.
You have crappy maths, you're going broke, slow, tortured to death.
Most people would be staggered by the number of spreadsheets I have, and like I've got a full-time virtual assistant, and all she does is spreadsheets and reporting for me. Every Monday, she sends me the weekly gross profit report for the last week. She shows me the amount of travel reimbursements we've paid to our cleaners, and there's also a projection for how much it'll be for the year, and compares it to previous months. We've got a recurring customers KPI report, so we have a KPI of $70 an hour. Any cleans that are above that, they're in the green. Any below that are in the red, and then we have to look at them and either decrease the time cleaners are spending there or increase the price. I've literally got about 30 spreadsheets that I look at on a weekly or monthly basis to keep my finger on the pulse of the maths in the business, because I do realize that that's all that really matters. You can have great marketing, you can have great systems, you can hire the best people, but if the maths don't work, it's a slow crumble.
Correct.
It's a slow burn until
but
you eventually become.
You are extremely unique. You know, whenever I bring the finance guys and the spreadsheet guys into the room, their eyes glaze over. In fact, they suddenly have weak bowels and go to the toilet. They get out of Dodge, mate. It's got a sign on the door, exit. They can't stand that stuff. That's the reality. That's the truth. As soon as you start all that stuff, they just want to check out. So it's again understanding psychology. And that's what makes you a very rare beast, that you gobble that stuff up, but you're a unicorn in that regard. Okay? That's just the truth. Okay, I've been in this game long enough. They just hate it. They just want to know how to get a new client and make a sale, and when you get at our level, you know, that's all they're interested in. They don't want to really know the numbers. And
there's this great feedback loop too, because I struggled with my own mindset for a long time. And even when I launched my second location, I was struggling to get the ball rolling. And then I was asking myself if this was even possible, or if I was capable of doing it, or if I just got lucky in the first one. And then I overcame all that nonsense and I did it again. But now I keep seeing the numbers go up. I keep looking at all the spreadsheets. I keep looking at the reports, and it's like I keep validating my own internal beliefs about myself and the business. And I have no doubt that we've doubled the business every year since we started in 2020. It has doubled every single year in revenue and almost team size as well. And I have no doubt that we're just going to continue to do that. And eventually we're going to get to a point where doubling is, you know, going from 6 to 12 million in a year, which is a completely new beast altogether. But I have no doubt that whatever problems are thrown at me, I'll deal with them, and I'll do so by maintaining all the same principles that I've had since the very beginning. It just looks a bit different every year.
Okay. Well, you're doing something right, mate. But I want to close the loop. I hate open loops.
We'll close this loop and then we'll have a quick break and come back. Let's do it.
I want to close the loop on mathematics. And I was telling a story about my now partner coming into my office. So the first business he presented me with, I told him to sell it tomorrow. Another consultant had got him to move the premises to a better location. Well, guess what? He's an accountant by trade. He's got a little iPad, and I said, tell me the maths. And the maths, God herself couldn't fix it. A bit sarcastic there, but, you know, no one can fix it. All right? And he took my advice. He brought his two partners in a couple of weeks later and said, you know, tell them what you told me. And I sarcastically said, anything changed in the last 2 weeks? And the short story there is they all agreed as they were leaving my office to sell it. I said, sell it as fast as possible, have a fire sale. They got millions of dollars in, but I would suggest they took a hit. And then on another occasion, I looked at another business. I won't bore you with that today. And as I presented it back to him in a coffee shop, he said to me, oh, by the way, I'm in childcare. I said, that's interesting. I nearly got into it in my 40s. I sort of wish I had. And he said, well, I'd love your marketing genius involved in, that was his exact words, in childcare. And I said, well, you know, tell me the maths. There's some commonalities going on here, Jason. Tell me the maths. 6 minutes later, he tells me the maths. I go, I'm in. You know, he said, I've got a block of land, $1 million. would you like to be my partner? And I said, I'm in on the maths, because it's the most critical question to ask. When he told me what you charge per day and the numbers, he had it all down pat. He'd had about 5 or 6 centres at that stage. Said, I'm in, mate. Just want to run it past my accountant. And if he agrees, spoke to Phil. He's been my accountant for something like 35 to 40 years, old school. And I said to Phil, here's what I'm looking at, blah, 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 blah. He said, they're fine. I've got clients in the industry. They're well worth the look. I knew immediately I could fix the marketing. They're asleep. Immediately. I won't go into that. No need to go into it. Okay? But here's what happened. There was another partner involved, his accountant, who's a wonderful man, and I'm having lunch with him after this today. And he's a fantastic guy, ducks of, university, accountant, dynamic. He's all of those things. And when he met me, he thought marketing was BS. Okay, because he'd been tarred with a different brush, hadn't he? All right? But we went to solidify the arrangement to be a partnership, the three of us. And essentially, in the middle of that meeting, I'll just see if I can do this without disturbing too much. I went like that. My apologies.
We'll replace that.
That's fine.
I'm sure you can afford it, man.
And I slapped the glass table, which is still there.
You didn't break the glass table?
No, I didn't. But I bloody near broke my hand. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
And it's called a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, well, it worked.
It did. And I said, boys, I'd never met Duncan in my life. The champion man. I said, boys, my accountant, and I agree with him, said this is a hell of an opportunity here today. And I'd really like to get involved because the numbers add up. But I got a problem. And if there's any lying, cheating, or stealing going to be part of our relationship, or anyone's going to call in lawyers, I want to shake your hands and wish you well and walk out the door. On top of that, you guys don't get this right now, but you're 25 years younger than me, you two, and you're incapable of thinking or even knowing what's ahead because it takes getting you there before you know it. So my wants and needs and desires are going to be very different from yours. I want my money now. I want to be paid first, and I hope you do too. If you don't, bad luck. But I want my money now. Not sometime in the future. I don't want to be the last person paid in this arrangement. Okay? And if you're not, because I've got different runway to you. Okay? I'm 25 years ahead of you. And that's what's driving me and my wants and desires and needs and frustrations. So if you aren't prepared to agree to that, I want to leave now and shake your hand. Duncan stood up in his seat, never met him before. He said, I'm going to shake your hand on that. Now, do you know that has driven our whole relationship? And we joke about it. They joke about it. Mal wants his bloody money first. To this day, in conversations, they go, we know. And I said, by the way, sorry, I missed something out. I said, if I want to sell out, because I probably will want to sell out, I want you guys to respectfully allow me to navigate that. I will give you first option, and I'll only want a fair price. That's all I would ask. And I would want you to consider another possible buyer if, in fact, you don't want to buy me out, that you may want to buy me out. Okay? Do you think that was fair on my behalf, Jason?
I think based on your own idea of what you want, yes.
Well,
Other people might not think it's fair.
both of them appreciate what I did that day, to this day. Okay, because it set us up for our relationship. You know, partnerships can be very complicated things.
Yeah, and it's now a wildly successful group of centres, isn't it? There's a few now, yeah.
It is, yeah. And marketing-wise, it'd be in the top 1% on the planet. Okay, that's my job. One of my other partners is operations, and Duncan's accounting. It's a perfect partnership, you know, and we respect each other's position in the business. We don't cross over. They support me 100% all the way down the line, and I do the same. But you see how important this stuff is. You know, this is all litmus test stuff, but it's setting you up for a fantastic partnership along the way. And I knew there was a loop in there. Here's the loop: mathematics.
It's the first question you asked.
We came here everywhere. First question. Remember in one of his businesses, I couldn't save him. God can't save him. Okay, get out of there. Did him the biggest favour under the sun. And it's the same applies anywhere you look. Nothing trumps mathematics. These are principles. You know yourself, I've written 46 principles of business. Okay, and I called it Mal's Web of Wealth. I turned it into my staff did back in the day, a spider's web with tactics, strategy, in the middle, autonomy. It's the middle of the spider's web. Tactics, which is where every business owner spends their days. Oh, I want some clients. Who gives a toss? Strategy. But principles drive strategy. Strategy drives tactics. And everything is driven by your version of autonomy. What is your version of autonomy? You know, figure it out. Write it down. And it can change, by the way. The whole thing about autonomy is people go, who made you king? What makes you think you're so smart? Why do you deserve it any more than anyone else? It's a rhetorical bloody question. I decided I was entitled to it. So first you have to anoint oneself for it to make it a reality. Okay, so it's self-anointment in truth. So I think I've tied that loop, mate. I'm satisfied there.
Good.
Hopefully the guys have got a bit of this and understood where we're going with it all.
There will be takeaways.
Beautiful.
For sure.
Call them ahas.
Aha.
Yeah, you had...
I had many of them, yes. In your sessions or reading your books or watching seminars, there were lots of aha moments. And for me, that's more important than even just the how to do it or the strategy itself. It's just the principle. And then tying that principle to it can be a quote, it can be a saying, anything. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave off for now, and we'll take a quick break and come back, and we'll clean up this mess you've made, Mel.
Yeah, sorry. I'm known for leaving a mess behind.
All right, cool. We'll be right back.
Cheers.
All right, we're back.
We are.
So what are we going to talk about now, Mel?
Make these guys some money.
Let's make them some money. That's
make
always
them
good.
Some money.
That's what they're here for.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a fair and reasonable request. And let me just say, in starting this, I'll tell you a story. I won't name names, but he's a genius and he's been my mentor for about 30, 40 years, and he's from the US. And I flew over there diligently for years and couldn't wait to rush back to this country and just do the stuff. Again, when mentors are concerned, the advice is choose carefully and go deep with that one person, or maybe two if it's in a different area. But in a marketing sense, find that right person and go very deep with that person, because I've had guys sitting in the same room next to each other, and one guy's flying and the other guy's saying, this doesn't work in my industry. They're wrong, of course, and they'll be right. You know, there's armpits, people have got two of them, and they're just opinions. That's all they are. So go deep with someone. So I went deep with this guy, and he told a story of being in a particular business, which I won't name also. It's not necessary. And he was invited in there as a hired gun, because he is a gun, and been paid a small fortune to do so. And it goes like this. They've got a new CEO or whatever it might be. And the CEO comes in to where my mentor is, and he said, "I've just realised they were actually paying you more money than we're paying me." And I find that a bit strange or something like that. And my mentor replied, "Well, look, on my very best day, I can't do what you do, be a CEO in a company like this. But however, the only reason this company exists is because of what I do, which is get a client profitably in the door. And by the way, if you don't tell anybody that I'm getting paid more than you, I won't either." Now that is elegant, and it's the truth, and it's a true story. That's just helping these guys understand why the getting of a client profitably, affordably, and predictably is the highest paying job on the planet. It is, quite clearly. All right? So let's get them some clients.
Okay.
With that said, so I'm going to tell you a story, and it goes back to when I met Stephen Gillespie, strangely enough. And Steve and I were in the same room, and we're listening to a guy who was selling security systems, and his name was Brad Cooper. And he was being financed by Rodney Adler, who had invested in their security system. I think the security system was called FAI Security or something like that, along those lines. And this was a struggling company initially. And what they did is they hired a marketing guy to help them succeed. And as you can imagine, there's not much difference between installing security systems to cleaning one's house. The mathematics is about the only thing that's superior, okay? But it's got something else going for it. Well, you've got continuity, subscription. In other words, you clean the house every week or fortnight or something. They've got monitoring, and that's the whole game. The whole game is monitoring back in those days. So they hired this guy, and I had to do a bit of research to try and online as to remembering everything they did. But they attached themselves to a thing called the Disneyland principle. And the Disneyland principle basically says, and this is straight from Walt Disney. Walt Disney also had something else he said: whenever a client appears, everything else is secondary. That's how they taught the team members, or whatever they called them, the characters or something like that. They themed the whole thing, which is another conversation. And they attached themselves to the Disneyland principle, which turns out to be wow factor. So if you've ever been, make sure you go. It is as clean as a whistle. The people are as helpful as can be. It's designed in such a way that all the cleaning and all those sorts of things, there's tunnels underground, as I understand it, and all sorts of things going on. And it's the way they treat the client. And the whole principle of that, if I could put it in a particular term, is they want to turn people into raving advocates of what you do. So in their case, you take the money back to the mouse. Okay? So wherever your money you're wanting to go back to, wherever it is, this is what this wow factor principle can do for you. And I've mapped it over from FAI. And FAI was struggling. So what they came up with, and what you should do if you like what I'm about to share with you, and I think you'll particularly like it, and you'll probably want to turn it into a thing, which is what it should be turned into. You create a wow experience for the client who you clean for. So the best thing you can ever do is get a referral. Now, referrals don't ask price. They don't do anything. They just simply, my mate said you're a great cleaner and I'd love you to do the... So in rooms full of people over decades, I said, who in the room has $1 million marketing referral system that would impress me? I don't recall ever getting a yes. But I prefaced that question with this question: what's the very best client any one of us has ever got in our lives? Guess what they said?
Referrals.
Correct. I have a referral system for my childcare mate that would make you run to the bank. Surprise, surprise. They bring the client to me, okay? And I reward them for that. When you think of what it costs you to get a client off the street, you should reward them because they saved me all my marketing dollars. So they recognised this, that the very best thing they could do to grow the company was to do a great job, which is mandatory, number one. And then number two, get people to refer you. Now, I don't remember the maths, but the average referrals for these guys was something like 6 to 8 per home. And here's just a list of what they did. So one of the things was trust. You know, I don't like it when my wife's home and some guy's coming around and you don't know who he is and what he... First things first, wear a uniform. Have your name on the car. Have epaulets. For some reason, we trust people with epaulets on your shoulder if need be. But certainly the name of your company on your shirt and so on and so forth. That's a mandatory requirement. Don't turn up like someone off the street. When you knock on the door, you know, in their case, they held up slippers that were disposable, and they put them on and showed the householder those slippers and then put them on. What are they saying? We really respect your house. We're going to look after it while we're here. We're going to leave it cleaner than when we arrived. And hi, I'm so-and-so from, what's her name's cleaning business. And then start asking some questions. Is there anything particular about your home that I need to know about that I can make sure I fix it while I'm here? But that's still just mandatory from my point of view. But let me read the story. They charged something like $2,500 per installation. I won't repeat the sales commission because they had a sales team doing this. But this is having a business that's back in the day was in a incremental type of business. There was lots of people doing security. In fact, I had a guy doing my house for many years myself. Leave the home cleaner than when they found it. Vacuum sweep where they worked. Now, you guys are cleaning, so it's not quite appropriate for you because that's what you're doing, but wipe down surfaces, remove all dust and drillings after you've done your work, polish alarm, keypads and so on and so forth. Remove rubbish. Train the person on your cleaning. On your using the security system. Give them a training video and all that sort of stuff. Goodwill. Now, while they're there, as I recall some of this, while they're on the roof putting up the light and that, they used to clean the gutters. While they're there, they oil the doors that might be squeaking. They also do things like any of the electrical devices like sensors and clocks, microwave ovens, videos and wall clocks. They adjust the times to make sure those machines are working correctly. Your fridge these days. Okay, they did all that time. They cleaned windows when they were sticking the stickers on. Okay, if there was a sick child in the house, they actually finished up buying the rights to Thomas Tank engines. Okay, that product, and Thomas the Tank beds. And because one particular installer went down to a news agency or whatever it might have been and bought a Thomas the Tank engine out of a gift store or whatever it might be and rushed it back because they knew what they stood for. They stood for wow. We were going to wow the client. Oh, by the way, they arrive on time or pay you $5 for every minute you're late or some number near there. Okay, what do you want? I sit around waiting for these people to arrive. That's not acceptable. In fact, it should be mandatory. So if you're late, it should cost you. Okay? And that's another thing they implemented that I've just remembered. Okay? So they're getting the toys and gifts, or if a child is home sick, offer to help with simple tasks around the house. I remember the oiling of the doors. And it created a referral mechanism. So you empowered the installers to use their own initiative. Shoe covers, introduce yourself warmly, ask about the kids, the pets accordingly, Thomas the Tank Engines, clean the gutters, replace globes. They carried globes. How many times is there a broken globe in a house when you're doing the cleaning?
Pretty often.
Free of charge, you replace the globes. Okay? Tidy cables, that's okay. Wipe surfaces, that's okay. A uniform, I've mentioned. Ring the doorbell, blah, 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 blah. I'll let you have this information after I leave for your own information. But to put this in perspective, how this came about is they got a bunch of installers together with a marketing guy, and they said, how could we wow the clients when we clean a house to such an extent they can't help but tell their friends about it? Can you imagine? You wouldn't believe what happened to me today. This cleaner came, well, he was dressed accordingly, which is fair enough, and he didn't have his bum hanging out. That was one of the things mentioned. You know, the crack of your bum hanging out. They had aftershave in the car. They sprayed aftershave on before they went inside. Do you think that'd be a good idea for cleaners?
Yeah, we say that in our business too. You got to smell good when you're at someone's house.
Okay, but no, it's mandatory. In these questions, they're all saying, how can I get more clients? How can I, and we've shown them another path today. This is how you can beat anyone, arguably.
And every little thing is another point of difference that stacks up.
Yeah,
but with the referral as well, I was going to ask, was there a mechanism or a call to action for them to refer, or is it just statistically that 1 in 5 people would inevitably refer?
No, they had a mechanism. Would you like to refer people to us? And the day after the installation, around comes a pensioner who, isn't necessarily going to cost you a fortune, but he's the right person or she's the right person with a bunch of flowers and saying, thank you so much. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Is everything okay? Can I fix this? Is there anything you don't know or remember about the system? So, all right, yours isn't quite, but think about how you can map it over. This exploded this company. I can't remember their statistics, but their referral rate was through the roof. You can imagine. You guys get together and figure out what wonderful. Would it be great to replace light globes? Would it be great to have something for when someone's home, not well? Is there a bunch of things you guys could do while you're there? Now, this is a still blue moment where you go, oh, no. Don't tell me I've got to do. Yeah, well, you get to charge more. They get to tell all their friends that here's what the cleaner did today. Went beyond, and I get a cleaner in. The house is cleaned, but he gives me no reason to stay with him whatsoever. And everyone, even your so-called loyal clients, are price shoppers. Every single day, and particularly today, this whole idea of loyalty has been misconceived. They've said, oh, people were loyal in the past. What it is, there's just too much opportunity not to be loyal. Everyone's knocking on their door. You've got the internet, this, that, and the other thing, cleaner near me typed into the internet. That's that simple. So you've got to do something that's affordable that makes them buy from me and stay with me. Now, another thing, Atlas, way back, David Glendenning knocked on my door in the early pieces. I put something in his mailbox years ago, and David Glendenning had Atlas Rent-A-Car. And I said, Dave, we want to wow them. We want to put a free road map. It was a road map those days. We bought the previous year's road maps for $1. They couldn't give them away. We created a a wow factor package. And in there was bottles of water, minties, and a voucher book, which I helped, was my idea, and we created it. And it had $2,500 worth of savings at fun parks, restaurants, cafes. The whale to a guy said that voucher was the best marketing he'd ever, the most clients of any marketing he ever did. So we've got a tourist coming into the state, haven't we? We've redefined, this is important, we've redefined our business from our client's perspective. And our client is the tourist. You've got to redefine your business from a wow factor point of view from their perspective. What would wow them? Well, having their hair cut, being able to buy novelty gifts and things from having been here in WA, restaurants, accommodation, fun parks, all of these things stood out. And we put a marketing girl in the street knocking on doors. We identified who these people were, and we created this $2,500 worth of savings at fun parks and restaurants and cafes and all these places, okay? I copied what I thought McDonald's used to put a voucher book in your letterbox years ago, but it was to buy burgers. But I thought, why can't we put a voucher book, if you like? And another thing that reminded me was the restaurant book. Do you remember the restaurant book where you could pick restaurants and get one meal free when you took two people? They used to sell them for $100 or thereabouts.
Well, it's especially smart for a rental car company because obviously you got the tourists coming in and they want stuff to do, and you just handed them
it was
an
wonderful.
opportunity to
what do you
do
think?
so at a discount.
So do you want? Well, people used to ring up and say, "Don't forget my welcome pack. Don't forget my welcome pack."
Well, look, it does work. Wow factor works. I've actually got a coaching client, David Dunstan, in my program, and he left his job in the corporate world and he wanted to start a commercial cleaning business, and he created this welcome pack. It was like this beautiful, sleek, matte blue box with his business's logo on it. He packed it full of stuff that, was like candles with his logo on it. It had some nice marketing material in there, just some stuff that he could take to an office and they could actually use, not stuff they'd throw away like a fridge magnet, but nice cups, nice candles, reeds, all that kind of stuff. And he would go into the place with, a fresh haircut, a nice blue uniform on with his logo on, and he would just go in there and have a conversation with whoever's at the front desk and give them the marketing pack, and there was no ask. He would just give it to them and leave. And recently he told me that he just got his first massive client, which is a chain of dental practices worth in excess of 6 figures a year, I think. And that all came from him delivering that marketing pack. Okay. Because that was wow factor.
Yeah. Okay. So we refer to that back in the day as lumpy mail. So I'm famous for sending rubbish bins full of shredded money. Rubbish bins. Trust me, if you want to get past the gatekeeper. We've also sent Ferrari cars without the controls. Mm-hmm. And the only way they could get the controls was for us to be able to, someone to speak to them, the boss. And I myself got that from Amex. And I rang up Amex. Yes. It took me ages to get through to the person responsible. I said, "What's going on?" It took me ages to. She said, "We're that busy. We've never done a promotion like it." I bought Ferraris, red Ferraris, cars, the remote control, okay? And that's what they did to me, and I wanted the control. She visited my house and signed. Well, I used to have 2 black Amexes back in the day, but I don't do that stuff anymore. Okay? So, if it's good enough for Amex, it's got to be good enough for us. So that's not understanding the cost of a client.
Yes. And
what it costs to get one. So your numbers are going to be different, but you can do all, like the voucher book. You put one marketing girl out in the marketplace. You define exactly what those things should be in the package. I know what my daughter's thinking about right now with Summer and her kids. It's not rocket science. And you go to these people and you say, "Look, we'd like to put you in our voucher book. We'll do the graphics for you. It was $10 or something to go in the booklet, but you have to offer something of value. Our preference is 2 for the price of 1. That's our preference," which I knocked it off from the restaurant package. If I rang David Denning now, he would tell you it's the best marketing strategy he's ever done. How hard is that? Do you know what else happened? We found out that most of the clients were going down south. So we put the same girl, her name is Annette Hyder, we put her in a car and we sent her down south, and she went around the rest of the wineries and all the cafes and the accommodation and, you know, B&Bs and all of this, and we created a voucher book just for down south and mapped it over. Do you think that might work?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
Now let's run through another list then.
All right.
You don't look impressed enough for me, Jason.
Look, I've been around your knowledge for a while.
I know, but have you got these things? Are they there? Are they operational? You know, are you going to organise what's your aha moments, Jason? Are you going to organise a voucher book?
You know, when I started the business, I was doing that. I would give a welcome pack. Yep. It was like a nice gift hamper, and But
what about your members that are listening to this? That's who I'm here for now.
See, we've got a different constraint now. Our constraint is recruitment. We've got a wait list of 200 people. So the last thing I'm thinking about is a referral system. But for majority of listeners,
not your clients and listeners, mate.
Majority of listeners will be needing
If you don't
this.
want to do this, they can go and do it themselves.
They'll need it.
All right?
This will be good to talk about.
Stick letter. First thing they get is a welcome to the family box on the first clean. You've already mentioned that gentleman a while ago. What great work that is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got tennis elbow from working on the bloody farm. Excuse me for a moment, folks. I'll try not to break another glass. So this is a real welcome pack from one of my clients and friends. This is Duncan's, actually. I created this business.
Very cool.
It's capital Q. And it basically says there's the letter in there, okay, that says, hey, you've made a very wise decision in choosing us, and here's why. And by the way, if anyone ever asks you about your accountant, which does happen, we have a referral mechanism for that product as well. So in here is, you know, a whole pile of things associated with sleep well tonight, knowing we're your accountant. Relax and sleep soundly at night with peace of mind in the knowledge your business and wealth building are in order and on track towards achieving your goals. So that's the essence of it. So this one's some treats. This is probably...
I know the thing that most people are going to... The thing most people are going to think when they see this is that it just isn't viable for them because they can't afford it or their numbers don't work. And that's because...
Okay, what do you think this cost?
Not a lot relative to lifetime value of a client, which is my point. Most people aren't looking at lifetime value, which is why they struggle with these concepts.
Don't do it and
suffer.
And good luck.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need it. So this is something else, Jason. You know I did over 500 of these. This is my greatest marketing invention. And I didn't invent it. I stole it from America.
The shock and awe pack?
It's the shock and awe pack.
We're actually creating our first shock and awe in the cleaning business soon to go after more commercial.
Okay, there you go. And that's telling them why in a sequential fashion. This is the sales letter broken up into sequential orders. And in this box is a bunch of those. And that tells the story. And this becomes a referral mechanism. And we've got a dressing gown in there.
That shock and awe pack is actually my favourite piece of marketing material ever from any sort of business. I remember at your reunion event, which was last year, I think, and you brought me up on stage, and that was really cool. I remember at the back of the room, you had a whole bunch of marketing material that you'd helped create over the years. And I just went straight to the shock and awe packs. And I've still got photos in my camera roll that I took of every single page of that shock and awe because I knew one day I'd be using that. And we are just on the cusp of creating our first shock and awe pack in the cleaning business that we're going to use to get more commercial and industrial clients. And I'm using those photos I took last year at your reunion event as a reference for what we're going to create.
Right. But mate, how can anyone argue this is going to cost you one clean? What's your cost for a clean? One clean.
Just one singular service?
No. What does it cost that person to be there? I give away free childcare for a year. It's just been drawn. No one in the industry can believe it. What does it cost me? My lights are on, my staff is there, my insurance is paid. I'm paying the bank. What does it cost me, Jason?
Nothing.
The food.
The food.
There you go. And there's some other great chock and awe's in here. Here's my own welcome to the family pack for my childcare. I've built the whole thing on music, dance, and percussion because I discovered it's the oldest form of education on the planet. I have a music room created. I have a dance room created. We have teachers. We teach language because this and percussion. So I reverse engineered the whole thing.
And that's a wow factor.
It's all well factored. There's musical equipment in there. We've got 25 of our own songs written for our childcare, singing about our childcare. We have those things at the end of the year with 500 and 600 parents and grandparents turn up to watch their kids perform. Where do you get that?
Can't think of any other childcare centres doing
Well,
that. Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah.
You don't want me next door to you, do you?
No.
No, it would be like an atom bomb landing on your plot of turf, okay? So anyway, phone them up the next day. Phone them up the next day. Call them and say, is everything okay with the clean? I've never been called. No tradesman has ever called me. Make it a system. Put a live person, put your wife there, do whatever, and just do it. You'll be staggered. Put the guarantee in place. Welcome to the family pack. That's you only do that the first time. My families only get that the first time. And it's got my shock and awe's in there as referral mechanisms. I give them a minimum of 2 and they're available behind the counter. I say, let us do the work for you. Don't you try but if one of your friends says, what childcare do you go to? Please give them this shock and awe. Does that make sense, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect sense. On top of that, I want you to have a coffee club card.
Buy 9, get 1 free.
Buy 10, get 1 free.
Yeah.
It's a sin not to have it. But probably we're going to get pushback, but judging by what you've said today.
It all comes down to maths. That's all it is.
If you can charge more, never have to worry about build a business, this is being a marketing company. The distinction here is there's no money in being a podcaster. There's no money in renting out podcasting rooms. The real money is being a marketer of those things and helping the industry, which is what you're doing here. Selling your success to someone else who wants it more than you do. By becoming that marketer, by the way, I'm not done yet. Oh, free clean, you know that one. One of my famous things, you'll remember, Jason, you get a piece of yellow A4 paper. I think it divides up into 3 or 4, and we cut them up and we write on there and we put a piece of string and we tie it to people's letterboxes, and it says, we're in your area. We'd love to do a free clean for you, no strings attached. Why would you do that? Why would we do that? Well, we believe once you see how well we clean and so on and so forth, and our guarantee is that if it isn't the cleanest clean you've ever had, we'll come back and clean it for you for free. And there's a bunch of other things you might say in that document. You've seen these from me, haven't you? Right, okay. A health guy who had 7 or 8 or 10 of these businesses opened up in Hammond Park, and I wrote that one for them. Use yellow, medium bright yellow, no other colour. I'm just trying to remember the name of the colour. I've just forgotten it. And writing on the back and front, testimonials on the back of this thing. It's only about that wide, A4. Tie it on the fence. Some people are going to ring up and say, that's littering, you shouldn't have tied it on the fence. Other people are going to go, I'd love to have a free clean and see what you like. Instantly creates, they couldn't believe it. This is a massive, there's about 10 or 12 of them, I won't name names, in the group. And they were opening a brand new centre in Hammond Park. And the first week they got 5 new clients I put a name to the type of appraisal they do. I could look it up, but I won't worry about it now. And to see what's wrong with you and offer that as a free gift. And it's a no strings attached chance to have this free appraisal audit done on your body.
I think it was Was that it was like an
You
enhanced
know them.
biodynamic
enhanced.
assessment? Yeah.
That's right. You're enhanced bio assessment.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, you know who the man
You know,
is.
that's why I came up with the name Enhanced Cleaning. I got it from that.
Right. Well, there you go.
That's all it was.
Now, I got another one for you. Do you remember what else I did for that person? You know who they are now because
Yeah.
you were in the room. Okay. I did an A5 flyer that went in a plastic what do you call that stuff? That see-through plastic stuff where you can sit things in, for example.
Just like clear wrap, basically.
No. You know, when you go to the bank these days, they've got all these white things up all everywhere. You can't, not white, they're clear things, you can't see through them. These are stands that you sit things in.
Oh, right, yeah.
And next to it, you put a box to put your entries in there.
Yeah.
And you go to a coffee shop near you and you say to him, I want to give away free coffees for a month. And we're going to do a draw. And you put one of these that you can read. It's in the box you can create, the box you can buy. And the guy's in Osborne Park on Howe Street. And you put the story in that, win free coffee for a year. We did this in a coffee shop. Hundreds of people entered it a week. And we asked them, do you have any problems with your health that a chiropractor or physiotherapist can help you with? Yes or no? So the coffee shop guy gets their clients to be loyal and gets the benefit of giving away free coffee and having the competition. And I've done this in many, many cafes and restaurants and all sorts of stuff over the years. So what's this? This
is
cost you peanuts.
The important distinction there as well is giving away something that business sells rather than going into a coffee shop and then doing a competition for a free clean and then just putting the pre-qualifying questions on the entry form. Yeah. And I've done that. And my dad's done that too, and it's worked well for him.
Well, you sat in the rooms. I'd be very disappointed if you didn't. But
the competition that launched, and people that have listened to this podcast as well will know that I launched my whole business with a competition, and I got $100,000 a year worth of clients in the first 2 weeks of that competition launching.
But we know you're a unicorn.
It was that easy.
I know. So
Most people just don't do it.
I'm trying to give them things that they could cherry pick the living daylights out of this, and all of them would work because cobbling works better than one thing here. One dangerous number in business is number one, okay? So you want many marketing systems. These bring you a client because the coffee shop guy has got your clients before you. Mm-hmm. That's how it works.
And salons, hair salons and beauty salons for cleaners.
We've gone in all of them with various businesses, mate. Okay? And it works. The only reason it doesn't work is because people don't follow through and do it properly. All right? Execution. One of the greatest secrets on the planet. A lot of people can't execute to save their lives. But anyway, there's some low-cost, kick-ass strategies for these people you can do a coffee cup club tomorrow.
I think that there's also a term, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, I think it's NEAR, N-E-E-R. I think it's near existing economic relationships.
Never heard of it.
Similar principle. Basically, you just go to other businesses in adjacent industries that you already know, have your existing clients, and you JV with them.
Well, it's one of the cheapest things you'll ever do is strategic alliances. Okay? I got another one for them, mate. They'll never,
I know, you've got a laundry list there.
Well, I've mastered pop-ups in shopping centres.
Yeah, I know you launched the early learning centres that way.
Yeah. Mm.
And
a few people have...
What other childcare centres are doing that?
Well, I've had a few copy me, but their execution so far has been diabolical. Okay, so they're just sitting, they've got cardboard cutouts of people sitting there. I won't elaborate on the technology, the intellectual property that I apply, but suffice to say the execution, even though they're copying me, is diabolical. So I never worry about a competitor, mate. Catch me if you can. And that should be the philosophy here. Okay, so no harm in going into a shopping centre and saying, win free childcare, win free cleaning for a year. Enter here. Do you have a house?
Or go gangbusters, yeah. I mean, I essentially did that on Facebook, and we got, I think it was 1,000 entries, and I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, and so I could have had a better conversion rate, but I converted 1,000 entries into about 25 paying clients, and that the value of that was about 100,000 a year.
Well, again, you saw me do it in the environment, and you mapped it over.
And I ran that same competition again for another cleaning business in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Same thing. Within 2 weeks, I launched him, and he had $75K a year worth of work off the back of a competition.
Well done.
It works.
Of course it does. I only talk about stuff that works, that maps over.
People are scared of free, though. Like we said, they don't understand the maths, and you tell them to give away a free clean or a guarantee, and they're like, aren't they just going to take advantage of that?
Well, yes, but, back in the day, Kmart used to say, when you buy something from us, you can bring it back. Okay, now I knew someone around the corner for my first house. So far we're going back. I won't name names, not that it'd be important. But he's Pommy, by the way. His name's Dave. And he said to me proudly one day, I go and get my suits from, when I've got a wedding or something, I go and get my suits from Kmart, and I take them back on Monday morning. Do you reckon Kmart doesn't know that goes on? Of course they know it goes on. Okay, it's just mathematics. You're not emotional about someone bringing their suit in. Guess who really pays for that? The suit supplier. Come on. They don't pay for it. Someone might, but he's doing his maths. He knows how many he gets back a month. It's all just mathematics and psychology, which is what we've discussed half the day. So it's getting these people to get their head around going negative in some way, shape or form. But it's giving away, this one, give away part of a profit you don't have to get a profit you never would have had. So what are you giving away?
Exactly. I was more or less going to say that, especially with a guarantee. If I had measured the results of what my guarantee had brought in over the past 6 years, if I look at two different timelines, one where I had that guarantee and one where I didn't, sure, I've given away maybe 10 free cleans as a result of having that guarantee, but it also netted me probably 50% of my entire business today. So if I didn't have that guarantee, sure, I wouldn't have had to give away 10 free cleans, but I also would have never had over $1 million in revenue that has come as a consequence of having that guarantee.
Have you ever contemplated the consequence of those 10 people that would have told all their friends about the crappy cleaner that turned up? But no, the best thing you can do is turn a bad client into an advocate. I call it white paper.
Well, there's that quote. I think it's Napoleon Hill. He says, in every problem or every failure, there is an equivalent opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. But what I found is by turning clients around and dealing with it like it's white paper, in other words, come from a lawyer or the government or some bloody thing, deal with it straight away. Unlike red wine, these problems don't get better with time. So what I do is I pick up the telephone and people go, oh, Mel, I know you're busy. I'm so sorry. It's easy to get on email and send something, that might not be very nice to hear. But my staff knew white paper's on my desk Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, first thing on my desk, and I deal with it straight up. So you probably turned those clients into advocates, swung them around from trashing you and turned them into clients, and they probably stayed. True or true?
True. It's going to happen anyway. If someone's not happy with a clean, they're going to want a refund, regardless of if you have a guarantee that says it or not.
Yeah, but make the invisible visible.
Exactly.
I've been doing it my whole life, making the invisible visible. Oh, we didn't want to tell anyone about our guarantee. Keep it a secret. It's insanity. Tell them what you do. All of us would go back and clean it if a client was unhappy. My guy missed the toilet last time. I just rang him and said, oh, you know, because he had a girl with him. I said, you know, you missed the toilet. It's a toilet washroom thing, you know. He said, oh, sorry about that. Didn't come back and do it. You know, just, oh, yeah, all right.
It's because you're not using us, mate.
Well, make me an offer I can't refuse, you know. Yeah, I didn't worry you, mate. But, you know, it's something I'll look at if you like. That's fine. Make me an offer. So you want to discuss a few things. So,
yeah, we're coming to a close on time, but what I reckon we can do is we can answer questions and we'll try to just rattle
by and
through
large, unless you pull some out of your hat there, we've basically covered most things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about some of the other stuff you've done, like speaking on stage. And this is a testament to truly, I don't think you have much of an ego. I don't know if other people look at you and think you have an ego or if you yourself think you have an ego. But I think if most people of your caliber that would come on a podcast would just go straight into talking about this stuff. And I've been trying to convince you to talk about it because to me, it's so extraordinary, some of the stuff you've done. So maybe we can quickly talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I think to give context, what's most interesting about me is my background. I couldn't read at school, couldn't spell, made to stand up in front of the class, shaking, petrified, child abuse by another name.
Yet now you have 2 global bestsellers and 5 other ones.
Yeah, whatever it is. And on stage with Trump and Branson. So I think it's a question of getting clear on, you know, your autonomy, what you're trying to achieve, and then get over it. For the first 40 years of my life, I refused to walk past a bookstore. I would walk around a bookstore. How insane. You know, that's how I believed. It's my own belief. But by this stage, I'd already bought and sold about 13 or 14 businesses. You know, but I still had this, the little kid was still in me, you know, that had bad memories. But I didn't let it get in the way. I've had 2 panic attacks on stage so the last thing that dies on you is your brain. Okay, that's how we're set up, all right, the biology. So what happens is you have a panic attack and the blood rushes from your body to your brain and you start to go wobbly. It feels like it lasts for about 5 minutes. It lasts for about 30 seconds. My son was in the room once. He said, Dad, you started to speak a language no one understood. And he thought it was funny because I mumbled and, you know, lost it. Okay? And another time I opened the curtain and there was 10,000 people there and I scared the daylights out of myself. Okay? Fortunately, it doesn't happen these days. But I had to push myself. You know, I had to deal with my own demons, if you like. Don't think I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. My family was broke. My brothers and sisters didn't have shoes. I'm all self-made. The only reason we had a house is because Mum got an inheritance, or Dad did, as it would be. Okay, so it's been all done on my own bat. So the Bransons of this world and the Trumps of this world, you know, I'm very proud of that. But what I'm most proud of is who I've become. I had to become someone I wasn't, not naturally, certainly not part of this lucky sperm club, that's for sure. Okay? I had to really take it on and accept, you know, that it wasn't going to be easy. But I knew if I was to help people and help myself, I wouldn't do this for free. I wouldn't put up with people's crap for free, nor should anyone else. Someone asked in the questions, what should you do about clients that are a pain in the ass? Fire them. Fire them.
Get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
A lot of the time as well, that's a problem that people have because they don't have, one, they're not clear enough about who they want to do business with, who their ideal customer is, and then they don't have a good enough lead gen system to the point where they can filter out the ones they don't want because they feel like they have to take whatever comes their way.
Yeah, but you need to make space for the next guy. Okay, so I ask a room full of people on numerous occasions, who in the room has taken on a client when intuitively they've thought, it's going to be a pain in the ass. And by the way, I can still do it. I can still fall on my own sword. Okay, we're not perfect, are we? I suggest I'm probably the most flawed person in my rooms. But what I'm good at, the thing that makes money move, I'm really bloody good at. And I don't get into HR. I could give a toss. I want to make so much money you can hire the best expert on the planet. I don't want to be that person for 5 seconds. I don't want to be that systemized person for 5 seconds because you can hire it because the number one job on the planet is marketing and sales. It all starts there. So that's where my energy goes. That was what happened for me. I realised that's what it was all about. The getting of a client affordably, predictably, reliably at a profit. Okay? So, we've got some stories about working with these guys, and Jason wants me to share one in particular where Trump is concerned. From my perspective, in the green rooms of this world, he was very pragmatic and not exactly warm or anything like that, gregariously warm or anything, but he was just interested in what you're reading and what you're doing. He's not, I just found him very pragmatic. It was simple as that.
But what was really crazy though was you spoke immediately before Trump on stage.
After they'd been there 4 days waiting for him.
Yeah. And so how did you navigate that and how did that make you feel? Was that the most nervous you'd ever been in your life at that point, or were you pretty well seasoned with talking on stage to the point where it didn't bother you too much?
I call myself an optimistic pessimist or a pessimistic optimist. I don't know which one. But I had plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D going on. So I had a brand new computer with nothing on it but my PowerPoint. In my pocket, I had 2 sticks with nothing on it but my PowerPoints. This is a big day. It's probably been I knew it was worth 10 years to me in a marketing sense. It's been worth more than that. Much more than that, to get that invitation. And not everyone gets the invitation. And not everyone wants to speak before Trump. But I rig everything. This is all about rigging the game. Okay? I sat there for 4 days and watched every other speaker. No other speaker did it. They're at the back talking, chatting to everybody. No, I sat there, watched everything. The whole event. Because I wanted to make this a big payday. A very big payday. Speaking, with all those guys and also Trump as well. So sitting there for the whole 4 days, I got to get a sense of what was going on. Tony Robbins was there, a bunch of other people. And in my own case, they wanted to check my equipment and I got stuck on the tarmac waiting for a opportunity to park the plane, and I wasn't there for the check of my gear. They got a name for it or whatever it is, and this has got a pit. This event's got a pit like an orchestra, and it's full of people with all these high-powered electronics and speakers and everything going everywhere, and sort of frightening in its own way. And then we tried to get me checked. What's it called? Something or other check every morning, and it didn't work out. They got stuck into the morning. I came in early. They just couldn't get to check my gear. Anyway, it was a break before myself and Donald Trump straight after me. Donald, I was told, I don't know if this is true or not, Donald said, if you're late, I'm going to walk out of the building or something. I think they were just trying to scare the crap out of me to be on time. We plugged my computer in and everything went everywhere. It was just, I was not going to be able to present anything, not a word in terms of the presentation. In a sense, sheer panic sets in, or, what can I do? So in that moment, I tried the stick, brand new computer. I turned to the, what do you call those pits with all those people in it? And I said, listen up. All of you listen. Look at that. this thing's not working. I'm on in 10 minutes. Does anyone in this effing pit know to fix it? And one guy went, oh, I reckon I can. I said, mate, jump on it, please. Anyway, he got me going. But at that stage, it was still in progress. And I had my notes, and I was about to go to the lectern, which I don't particularly use, but I wanted to read my notes. And I had clients there who I made a fortune for. I'd love to tell their story, but I don't think we'll have time. And maybe we will. It's the all head story. You know how important that is.
We probably won't get time.
Okay, another day.
There'll be a part 2 one day.
It's another day. Okay, so, and we didn't finish the Hasty Tasty story, sold in 5 months. So I'm there just reading my notes, and my notes are specific. I come prepared. And Mark, my ex-client, dear friend, is a brother to this day, and we call each other brothers. And he puts his arm on my shoulder after seeing all the shit I went through. And are we allowed to drop the F-bomb here today, ladies and gentlemen?
Would love to.
He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, how you going, mate? I said, fuck off. He said, what? I said, fuck off now. And he said he put his tail between his legs. And he walked off stage and he went to the green room and he went, what sort of idiot am I that I went and bothered Mel when he's in the middle of this preparation? We went out to dinner that night and had duck, and I apologised to him. He said, mate, you could never do anything wrong to me if you tried. And then my wife got a camera at the same time as Mark. I'd told Mark to go off, and I said, and she said, oh, smile. I said, you fuck off too. And that night I had to go home, or that day I said, look, sorry, love. You know, in the moment, I just didn't have time for any of that stuff. And you didn't read the room, you two.
Or did you buy a new bag or something with your payday that day?
Every day's her birthday, mate.
Yeah.
Every day's her birthday.
Man.
I got on, I did my thing, and it's frightening to watch. And my opening is as good as I've ever seen for an event. I was just in the zone. How does that happen? I don't know. And I did, my sales manager just told me I did 650K in about 110 minutes. I've never done the numbers on it.
And that was how many years ago?
Oh, long before Trump became president.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly.
It's a good hourly rate.
Not bad. I didn't get to keep all that money. You know, please don't get this wrong. We delivered, you know, big time. And that box led to other sales as well. I was probably the dearest on the card. I think I was about 6 or 7 or 8 grand to complete strangers in, 100 minutes,
And to
roughly.
do all of that with the imminent pressure of the headliner Trump coming on right after too.
Yeah, that wasn't my main focus. It was getting the job done. I had a job to do, and technology hates my guts. Yeah, my brother, it's white goods. He always buys them and they don't work. With me, it's technology.
Well, look, it's impressive, mate. I don't think many people wouldn't buckle under that sort of pressure. As you know, I've been on TV a few times, and every time I felt like I'm going to pass out and die from the anxiety of it.
Yeah,
it gets a little bit better every time. But
it does. It does.
I can't imagine doing something like that.
Yeah. Not many people know that story, as you know. I don't advertise it. Swearing at your wife like that's not very nice, but you had to be in that moment with me.
Yeah.
And Mark, my mate, he got it, He was first to apologise when I got off the stage,
Pretty extraordinary.
Extraordinary, yeah.
No, thank you for telling that. It's like you said, you can't really find that anywhere on the internet. It's
No, yeah. Well, no one knows who I am anyway.
Yeah, I've seen the presentation, and it was pretty remarkable.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you
the
go.
DVD.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Mal. How about, I know we've kind of covered everything, but how about we just end off by giving like a 1 or 2 sentence answer to some of these questions we've got,
Try.
just to just to appease all the folks that ask them. So we've got a couple of questions that some of the viewers sent in, and yeah, we'll just try to get through as many as we can in the quickest time, and we'll both kind of answer them in our own way from my perspective as a cleaning business owner and your perspective as a marketer investor. So some of these are about AI, so we might just get into AI a little bit. I'd be keen to hear your take on AI. So the first question we've got here is, how do you see AI changing marketing in the cleaning sector, or any business for that matter, over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, at one point in time, my clients told me this, because I niched a lot of guys, and you might know some of them. You certainly heard of them. I niched them into becoming copywriters, and they were high-paid copywriters, and they blame me for them charging me too much because I told them to, in a sense. It's my fault that they then charge me too much. And the reality of this, I've been playing around with it more recently, and what I can say to you is, once I was one of those clients said, Mal, do you know you're in the top 250 copywriters on the planet? Minding my own business here in Australia, but I was writing to fill seminars and stuff like that, and my rebellious rants and all those sorts of things. And I said, no, I didn't have a clue, what number am I? There was some site somewhere. I won't be there anymore. People think I'm dead. And I was about 186 or something like that, or 75. I said, no, I didn't have a clue. So in front of that room years ago, I said the highest paying job on the planet, which links to sales and marketing, is the ability to write compelling words. And it's true. Absolutely true. It's a license to, well, people used to get offended, some in particular I can remember, because I used to say marketing is manipulation. And it is. But use marketing for good, not bad. Okay, that's the distinction. Okay, use it for good, not bad. No lying, no cheating, no stealing. Remember, that's what I said to my partners when I got into childcare? So no lying, cheating. So you don't need to lie and cheat and steal from anybody, okay? But what it's done, because I'm working on some stuff at the moment and I'm using it, and I'm staggered by the quality of AI. I'm staggered that it can come anywhere near as close to where it's done. So what it's done...
Well, it essentially aggregates every great piece of copy ever and then condenses it down and can distill it into something that you want to create with it.
I tell you what it can't do that I know of right now, and I'm a master of the big idea. Okay, a master of the big idea. The big idea is the thing you wrote this for in the first place. I know you'd like me to tell this story. And the question you ask, and you must ask every single time, this is the question I ask myself. And in my group, they used to say, what would Mal do? Do you remember hearing that? Yeah. That's what they'd say to themselves. What would Mal do? Okay, that helped them. I didn't create that. They wanted. So what would Mal do? So Mal wanted to run a seminar and he wanted to fill it up. And I wanted people to come even if they didn't want to go to a seminar. So the question was, what one thing that seems impossible, that if you could do it, would change everything? Now, that's a magnificent sentence, and I lived by it. What one thing? Now, you have to put it in context, whatever it is you're doing. Okay? So in this case, I wanted people to come to a seminar. I didn't want to come to a seminar because I knew I'd get people who did want to come if I could get people who didn't want to come. So I said to myself, I happen to know people love holidays more than anything on the planet. And I want to give away free tickets to travel around the world to come to a seminar. How do you do that? Well, I went to, you must go through a licensed, what do you call it? Travel agent.
Yep.
Yeah, because they've got the license to sell that stuff. And the first one said to me, and by the way, you don't get the staff to do this stuff. There's some things you must not give to the staff. So I did it. I picked up the phone. And I was quickly told that The only airline that flies around Australia is Qantas, and they do not deal. And that is absolutely true. All right? So I then adjusted my language and said, okay, well, maybe I can't fly around Australia, but around the world. What else can I do? And in the end, I had 2 offers from an airline and a third offer from another airline waiting to see whether I was full of BS or I was real. Okay? And I wanted to buy, I think it was 600 airfares. All right? So this is where you got to have brass balls and big ones. Okay? So, well, I'll explain it to you. So I finished up doing the deal with Hawaiian Air. And Hawaiian Air were just launching in Australia. So the idea of going to Hawaii and lying on the beach, people have still said to me this day, Mal, I still think about you lying on the white sands beach in Hawaii using your free tickets. How's that? So there was a conversation in this country and when the seminar business was, what is Mal going to do next? I gave away cars. I did all sorts. I gave away my own Lexus sports car, $155,000, all sorts of things. Okay. In the end, they didn't take the car. They wanted me. That was the choice they had. And I sold it to a client in the room. But that was the offer, win my car. And anyway, so I did the deal with them and then I went out and I wrote the copy. Now, on any given day, that airfare was $1,600 return. On special, and you had to all be online that day and grab it, you could get it for about $9.95 or $1,000, okay? So I wrote a headline that says, this is a 42-page sales letter. Probably my most read. People could not put it down. People said, I took it to bed. The missus was in the mood and I just wanted to read your sales letter. I had another guy say to me, I took it to the toilet and I couldn't get out of the toilet reading your blasted sales letter. So, it's not too long. It's just too boring. All right? So they're reading this sales letter and, they paid it was $2,497, as I recall, to come to my event for 4 days. And I bought speakers from 3 days all over the world and I fed them and I gave them a whole pile of bonuses. And cut a long story short, it was pretty much chock-a-block. And people came for the airfares. Now, I knew some people were just there for the airfares, okay? And they would refund and take, because I said, you keep the bonuses, right? And immediately my staff came up and said, we've got one here. They're already asking about the bonuses and they're already asking. I said, don't worry about it, because it's all about the maths. And that person and their son, a woman and a son, refunded in the first 5 minutes. Got all their money back but got the bonuses. I could care less because I filled an event up from people all over the world. I sold my own stuff and I sold this. Now, here's the question. I paid $300 each, as I recall, for the tickets. When did I pay for them?
After.
Correct. Who paid?
Once you'd already gotten paid by your
Who paid for it?
people that went to the event.
Correct. Now, is that genius or is that genius?
And you're right, AI is not going to come up with that.
No, it's not going to come up with it. So this is my whole thing. I've always written the offer first. There's a lot of varying opinions on copy, okay? I say write the offer because it writes your headline. Other people say write the headline first. No, I write the offer first. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. All I'm saying is it's right for me. Okay?
No, it's right for me too. I've tried doing the headline first and then with my ad copy, and I find the best way to do it is to start with the call to action or offer and then reverse engineer from there. So that was the big idea, and I don't think AI is going to knock off everything, but it's staggering what it's producing. So it's only going to get... agree. I think the main thing here is that it's just something you need to adopt or get left behind. I think it's like any other tech revolution we've had, like the dot-com boom and anything else we've had along the way. The people that resist it and don't adopt it will just get left behind. All I think it's going to do is act as an accelerator.
No, it's leveling the playing field.
for the big and small players.
Yes,
what you
and
mean by
no.
that?
I mean, that's macro and micro. That's a different conversation. Micro's always had an advantage, small business, as opposed to macro. Okay? But no, what I mean is the dumb bums or whatever that never ever mastered anything suddenly have something that has very real possibilities. I'm, quite impressed with what it can produce. It does depend on your instruction. Very, very, people think Mel's a technophobic, and I am. I'd rather smash the bloody things. And I was very hard on mobile phones as well. But boy, oh boy, that's where, but I called them breakthroughs, and they are, So, it's leveled the playing field, unfortunately. But nothing stands in front of mastery. So right now, they'll never come up with a big idea.
Okay. Cool.
But that doesn't mean it's not a threat.
But do you agree that people must adopt it or get left behind? Do you see it
I
as
think
that?
I'm a big believer in situation. Everything's situational. I don't think it's going to do a pop-up at a shopping centre.
But it will help with the marketing material that could go into that.
Possibly, if you instruct it correctly.
Yes, they can't come up with the big idea, which would then lead you to even ask those things.
What did I say right back at the beginning? One of my gifts is right questions.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
I was going to say that when you said that at the start of the podcast, but it wasn't a good time. But the thing with AI is you need to be able to ask the right questions. And it's not going to give you the questions to ask.
It's not so much questions, it's instruction.
The prompts, yeah.
Yeah, instruction. I've actually surprised myself a little bit.
It's not an easy thing to do to prompt AI in the direction you want it.
Well, I've asked the right questions most of my life.
Okay, well that's a good answer. I'm sure the viewers will be happy with that. What do you reckon we do, like 5 or 6 more? And
one of them, one of the first ones you asked when you mentioned when it came in late, I've got the answer to that question. What is it?
That was, what's the most counterintuitive leadership lesson you've learned?
Fire fast and hire slow.
Right.
Free them up.
That must be where I got that from, because I've been saying that since I started as well.
Yeah. Here's another one for you. Task determines the team.
Can you expand on that?
Well, what are you doing situationally? I am. You remember I used to draw a circle on the page maybe, and I cut out 10% of that circle. This is the whole business. The 10% is what I'm good at. I'm a master of surrounding myself with the right team of people that excel and having wonderful, wonderful relationships with them to be friends of mine to this day, and you know some of them. Okay? And the other stuff I call lesser mortal shit. It's derogatory and maybe not sound great, but they know I call them that. But I don't want to build a website. I don't want to do any of that stuff. That's not where the money is. The money's in the 10%. It's called clicks on the dial. I've only got about 5 clicks on my dial, but they're bloody good clicks. So another way of looking at that is, so people get blocked up with the amount of work they've got to do and things they've got to do. So in my world, I say you've got 5 number ones every day, and you allocate time accordingly to each number one. Or you might have 3 number ones or 2 number ones. Doesn't matter. Allocate time to those number ones. The things that were never number ones, you come back, you put a rock on them, you come back in a year, and guess what? They were never worthy of your time, ever. So figure out the number ones that move the needle above everything else you do, and only fix that, because 80% comes from 20%. In fact, 95 comes from 5. You want to be really serious? Only do the 5%, because 95 comes from that.
A lot of that will be marketing for most people listening. People just need to 10x their marketing efforts.
Task determines the team. I surround myself with people that are much smarter than me at what they do. But I'm a fantastic delegator.
What about KPIs and metrics? If you had to say just a couple of financial KPIs and metrics that business owners should be tracking in their business, what would they be?
Oh, mate. I failed maths.
Do you think, would you agree with me that the most important is lifetime value, just figuring that out? And then cost to acquire
You're
a
talking
customer?
about mathematics in my language now.
Yes.
Okay, now my staff was staggered that I knew where we were at without looking at the numbers. I understand what's going on. So I failed this dismally, but I've got an accountant partner that's magnificent. So, I'm the wrong guy to ask about KPIs, but we have that conversation around the table. But I'm focusing on the marketing stuff. I know where every single client comes from. I know my hot areas, my cold areas. I know this above my partners. They wouldn't have a clue what I know because I'm predicting the future. And if you want to predict the future, I want to tell everybody here how to predict the future. Understand the present. At one stage, I was 103 kilos and I was going to be fat and dead. I had 200 maybe people in the room in South Australia, 3-day event, maybe 4. I turned to my wife at dinner time that night. I said, honey, I'm cooked. I'm going to be fat and dead, living out of hotels and flying in aeroplanes and club lounges. It's so dysfunctional. I'm cooked. I'm done. I'm selling it. Okay? Came back here. A guy advertised being a evidence-based naturopath. He's a great friend to this day. He said, I walked in there and I interviewed him. He said, I've never been interviewed by someone like you before. The health club I went to, they said the same thing to me. I held their feet to the friggin' fire. All right? And so should we. Anyone should. Okay? And they knew exactly what I wanted. And I said, so can you do this or not? All right? Now, he was marvellous. Shannon's his name. Okay? It transforms over everything, this stuff. Okay? You want to predict the future, understand the present. So I'm 83 kilos today. I've been it for nearly 10 years. You've seen me over that period of time.
It's funny. Start of this year, I was 103, and now I'm 83.
Yeah, I know. I can see you're a lot lighter.
That's funny.
Well,
Same exact numbers.
Yeah, well, you took action, the appropriate action.
Yeah, well, I wasn't prioritizing my health. I was just working nonstop in the business, and then I get it. And then I took a good look at myself, and I was like, I don't feel the way I want to feel. I felt lethargic, and I had to change that.
Well, you take you with you wherever you go, including your health. You don't get to.
Well, there's only 3 things that matter in life. It's your health, wealth, and relationships.
Mate, I can tell you now, the most important prevention is almost impossible to sell. All right? Okay. When you get sick, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Okay. Until then, I've surveyed people who were belonging to various groups. I've surveyed for my clients. I do 100 hours, used to do 100 hours per client, or I wouldn't coach them of research. Not me, my people, right? And then I do a survey to their list. And we've been told things you wouldn't believe. And like people who want passion and all these nice things and relationships and, in their life, we put money in there. Guess what came out number 1? Money.
Yeah.
Try surviving without it. I'm just, not everybody, but that's the survey. Surprised all of us. You know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next one.
All right. Yeah, we're pretty much out of time. So do you just want to rattle through a bunch and see if we can do a 1-sentence answer to each one?
I'll
try. Do you reckon? Yeah.
I'll try.
I know I'm testing you, mate. All right. Some of these we've answered. Let's see. Do you remember your first roadblock or major conflict in business, and how did you deal with it?
No, I'm joking. Oh, look, that wasn't a sentence.
While you're thinking, I can say mine.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I would say mine was a conflict. I've always been a very shy, reserved guy up until recently. And so when I had my first major conflict with a client, I had spent 22 hours cleaning a house. I went there at 4 a.m. on Saturday, finished at 2 a.m. on Sunday the next day. And I thought I'd done a good job. Monday morning, I get a call. Client was not happy. I went straight back there to fix it, and I was getting yelled in my face. I actually got shoved. It was pretty bad. And that was my my first major conflict in business, and it honestly, initially, it made me want to quit. It was pretty tough to deal with. And my ops manager now, she was actually there. I brought her with me because I was honestly just scared to face it alone. But I don't really know.
Mate, this is more than a sentence.
It is. Okay, I'll bring it together. I actually don't know how I solved it. I think I just did it. And that made me a better and stronger person. I think that's the important thing. I just went in there and faced the music.
My turn.
Yeah.
At one point, I wanted to save the friggin' world. Okay? That's business owners. Until I realised they're a bunch of tossers. By and large. Not without exception. Because I have some beautiful, wonderful friends like yourself to this day. Okay? But me, I nearly killed myself trying to make it right for them when I had to understand that conflict, that you can't help them until they want to be helped, or they're as invested in all of this as much as you are. Now, stop looking at your phone. The next question became, what was the distinction between those that did and those that didn't? If you want to know. Bit more enthusiasm, Jason.
Go on, tell me.
Okay.
Tell us.
Right. Mate, it was level of pain. Level of pain outdid everything. Like Carl and Mark. They owned a fortune to the all heads, the tax department, they had a fortune, everything. So I'm just going to leave it. You wanted a statement? You got it. Level of pain creates the shift where previously you sat on your bloody hands. Okay? And you can't do that for them. I had to realise I couldn't do it for them. So that was a great question.
Okay. That pretty much summarises what I was saying.
Oh, all right, yeah.
As well.
Well, I said it better.
Yeah, you did say better. I'll give you that one. There was a few commas in that sentence too, but that's all right. Next one. What have we got? That's why I was looking at my phone. I was trying to prepare the next question.
I know, mate.
Now I've been derailed.
I'm giving you a hard time, mate.
You're good at that.
I'll just have a bit of fun.
Okay, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd have to someone starting their own business today?
Take mentors. Do not invent the rule. Find out what is don't invent anything. Find out what is working and do it better. That's the greatest piece of advice you'll ever get. When people come up to me and say, Mel, I've got a challenge for you, I say, you know what? Bugger off. I'm not interested in challenges. I don't want to challenge anywhere in my life. I want to rig the game. This is my autonomy. I don't want one challenge ever. I've got a wife and a dead one and a daughter here and a daughter there and a son here and a son there. I've got enough friggin' problems. Okay, I don't want to challenge any business owner. I'm not interested in their challenges.
Okay, I'll echo that. All right, how do you improve staff retention? Actually, there's another question I'll just add into that, and it was, how do you deal with hiring? I feel like we are dealing with such a lack of hard workers. I'm just going to say I don't deal with that. I just have a massive sample size of people I can choose from. We have 1,000 people that apply to work for us every month. We interview 50 out of those 1,000 and we hire 5 to 10.
Yeah. The short answer is I know what I'm good at and I know what I want to do and I know what I don't want to do. And hiring, I could have added staff to that conversation, but I have been very fortunate. But it's also the type of leader I am. They loved my no bull approach, my staff. You know, they had a name for me. When my plane was coming home with my orders under my arm, they said the tornado has just landed. I knew I was going to walk in the office and go, boys and girls, but they loved it. Daisy to this day, Ebby to this day, Marie said, we loved how clear you are. All right? One of my long-standing printers that I did $680,000 a year with said, we had a name for you. Oh, Captain Chaos. You know, but I paid, mate. I didn't question. They told me after I sold out. And they said, we had a name for you. Chris and I can't remember her other name. She said it was Captain Chaos. But you know what? I could get on the phone in the middle of the night and say, I need these things printed tomorrow morning. Can you get it done? And they never said no. So, but around the office, it's Captain Chaos. I just bloody loved it, mate. I said, I wish you'd told me earlier.
All right. And what's the biggest block for people to getting to that 1%, that success that everyone's trying to strive for? What do you think the biggest
We'd
block
have to
is?
say people themselves, wouldn't we, or something like that? We see too many people overcome so many obstacles in their lives and succeed when other people who arguably should have succeeded didn't. We know statistically there's a thing called I can't remember, it's a triangle, and 5% of the world's population control 95% of the world's wealth. Another 5%, then there's another 10% that's doing okay. And by the way, if you've got 5 mil, you're in the top 5% of the planet. That's when I knew the numbers. Okay, I've been out of it loop for quite a while. And down the bottom there, there's about it's the 80-20 principle. I just can't remember the numbers, but a whole stack of them can't afford to pay attention. They're dead broke, in need of a handout. Okay, so first and foremost, they re-looked at those stats after 50 years. They came out of the stats. They came out of the States. And the only number that changed were the amount of people that were dead. So you can't change behaviour. So the overriding factor in success and failure is choice and behaviour. I've nailed it. It's choice and behaviour. You sat in my room and you made certain choices, and then you behaved in a certain fashion that made that a reality. It's choice and behaviour has nailed that answer.
Perfect. All right. And what's the biggest mistake business owners make when crafting marketing offers? I'll just quickly say what I think. I think it's really just not knowing the ideal market, their target customer. I think that's the first problem they have, and then every other problem they have follows that.
Yeah, look, fair comment, but I'll be specific. It's understanding the fears, frustrations, wants, desires, and needs of your market clearly. That's why I rig the game, I understand them, and then I write to those things or market to those things, and I can't fail. So I do that via survey back in the day. All right? I get and the internet's provided you with a wonderful opportunity. I had to figure this shit out once upon a time.
Talking about that with my dad, and I was telling him, like, if I grew up in his era, I don't know if I would have done this. I don't know if I could have.
Possibly not. Your brain's wired a certain way too.
Yeah.
I want to share another one, the 5 emotions that drive human beings. We've already related to reptilian brain, and it's true. Nothing's different. It's a reptilian brain, however you look at this. But the 5 emotions that make you shift and move are love, greed, guilt, fear, and pride. That's them. That's them. That's it. So you must write to that and communicate with that. Do you know what number 1 is?
Out of those 5, I wasn't listening.
Love, greed, guilt, fear, and pride.
Love, guilt, fear.
Love, greed. I can hit them.
Fear.
I can hit them selling you that glass.
You're saying the number 1 out of those 5 as being the biggest motivator?
Correct.
Fear.
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely pain. It's come back to that same denomination. It's come back to pain.
Great. Sorry, I was looking at my phone, so I wasn't
I
listening.
forgive you.
But we got there.
We did.
All right, we'll go.
Not bad for someone that should have been in jail. Hey,
Yeah. It's worked out all right.
Bogan.
Hey, we actually clean jails now.
Oh, God.
We've got a contract with the regional police in Southwest.
I can't believe I said that to you, mate. You're only a young kid. Pretty.
I was trying to work out what that meant at the time.
Yeah,
but
well, who's this guy?
you weren't far off the mark there, though.
Pretty much.
All right, 2 more questions. You're someone that has obviously multiple streams of income now. This person in particular has asked, how important is it to have multiple streams of income?
Well, any number 1 is too dangerous. And again, if I tell this story, they'll never forget it, but I just don't know if I've got time to tell it. It'll take 5 minutes.
We can end with that.
Okay.
I think every other question's been answered by proxy of what we've talked about.
A dear friend of mine, Glenn Michaelides, who you know well, who became my partner when I retired because he wanted to start a coaching business and I helped him. came to me, saw me on stage with Branson in Sydney, flew over there with his partner just to watch probably Branson, who was probably entertaining, but I made them money. And Glenn heard me on stage and he said to his partner, this guy is a no bullshit guy. I really like him. His partner said, oh, he's a tosser or worse to that effect. And he's right too, because I am. And with that, they came home and they came into my office. You know yourself, or you probably don't, but one of the things you could do is have time with me on the phone, and you'd fill out an audit so I'd understand your business and all that stuff. So they came in, they filled out the audit as you're required to do, or I won't talk to you. You get what's called Mal's red pen. You know, bugger off, do the work. And anyway, they came in and they told me what they did. They owned a company called Ultimate Four-Wheel Drive. And in that, they did aftermarket cars for mining companies. You'll also know that I had a bestseller already written for recession-proof your business and income, because I'd been warning everybody for years this was coming. And it wasn't that hard to predict, because it really, they call it the subprime, but it's based on age-driven spending, early retirees and two-income families. The baby boomer worldwide was retiring, the highest earning, highest spending group in the history of mankind, who in their 47th year was their highest spending year. This is how I know shit, mate. You know, I find out about this stuff because that's age-driven spending. The highest spending group is gays. Yeah, best ones to sell to. That's
Highest
just a fact.
spending group, okay.
Yeah, today. Yeah, that's right. So, and they've got disposable income, obviously. But anyway, Glenn came in and we're doing this, and they've got, you know, Glenn won't mind me for saying what was the truth, that they had, you know, enough money up the wazoo. There was a house here and a house there and a car there, and, you know, pretty flash cars that they like, and old ones and Monaros, Commodores and things like that. And they were living their life. And business was booming. 100 cars would come in from Toyota and they'd pimp them up. And Glenn invented some stuff that was really good for safety. And you know himself that his videos on how to, you know, do all this stuff on cars is 600, 700,000 views online. And they came in and said, here's what we do. And I went, can't help you. It was the second time, I can't remember the first, but I said, I can't help you. But then I added something to it. I said, I can't help you, but I'm worried about you. And Glenn Michael Eaddy's partner looked at me and he said, what do you mean you're worried about me? I said, well, you know, you get all your Toyotas from one Toyota dealership. That's a dependency on someone else between you and the money. I like nothing between me and the money. This is one of my laws. You know that very well, Jason. No one between me and the money, okay? And with that, and I said, on top of that, you depend on the mining industry. And I know we can't see it crashing or burning or anything like that right now, but, you know, it's still a dependence on the most dangerous number in business is one product, one service, one client, one stream of income in answering the question. It's too dangerous. Number one is the most dangerous number. Now, what happened is 2 years later, the global financial crisis hit. And that dealership, you know, also, the car stopped overnight. The car stopped overnight. Glenn came back. He bought the partner out. He wasn't up for the fight. Glenn kept all the staff, and we targeted the enthusiast, the four-wheel drive enthusiast, and the rest is history. He sold out for a ton of money.
Yeah, and if I remember right, his biggest client, which was a very large percentage of revenue, was one of the big mining companies, and overnight that income stream stopped.
It stopped. The whole industry stopped. You know, they didn't order one car.
Yeah. And the same principle, I guess, you apply it to investing as well. If all of your money's tied up in crypto, sure, crypto's done well, but if it doesn't, then you're in a lot of trouble.
Well, number one is the most. So particularly in this environment, you should be thinking. I'm never one to tell anybody about anything I don't know anything about, but I do my own thing, and I have investments. Okay, but I never give my money to anybody. I have no superannuation. I am my superannuation. When it started out, my accountant and I have had 30 years of fun and games between the two of us because he's wanted me to get this stuff before. And I said, I don't trust the bastards. They'll chop and change the rules and they'll do what they will like. Now, I made that statement when it came out, I don't know, 1980 or something like that. I've got no idea. I don't remember. And I've stuck to my guns because I've always been able to do better with my money than anyone else could. And I never give my money to anyone else to do better. I never invest with anybody. I've never believed anyone can make more money than I can make with that my own money. That's my philosophy. That's my autonomy. Read into it what you like. And I always borrow interest only. Why? Because I'm going to sell it.
You're leveraging someone
I
else's
want the money to
Yeah.
promote the business, to grow it. It still comes into profit. It's an add back. And I'm going to sell it. So what value is paying off? My partners are with me. You know, I've convinced accountants. Can you believe that? Their
They're a tough crowd.
They're well, pay it off, get rid of the debt. You know, they've come to the dark side.
Oh, that's great. No, I think that's a good one to end on.
I do too.
No, thanks very much for your time, Mel.
Pleasure, mate.
I would love to do this all day, but I know you're a busy man and we've already blown over time,
mate.
but I'm sure we'll do it again.
Only because I'm heading off to the farm or something, that's all.
We'll do the next one at the farm. How about that? Or in the Aston, one or the other.
Well, you wouldn't want to go up there right now, mate. It's 42 degrees or something. So.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scorcher.
Yeah, it's
at
shocking.
the moment.
But, you know, keeps me fit. My wife tells me I'm keeping you young, so thank you, wife.
You are a young 70-something-year-old. You're
Nearly
very sharp.
Thank you. Nearly 74, mate, so...
All right, well, I admire
Tap
you,
on the
Mel.
door.
Thanks very much for coming on.
All the best to everyone listening. I hope this has been of great value to you. My ultimate goal when I came here today was to deliver value to you to them on behalf of you, Jason.
And I do
Hopefully
appreciate that.
this is their best podcast they've ever had.
I'm
for
sure
the
there's some
100th.
nuggets in there, even if there's just one thing that people take away and can use in their business or their life.
I would dispute if there's only one thing to take away. I'd go look in the mirror if I was them.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for watching or listening or whatever you're doing, and we'll hopefully do this again someday. Thanks very much, Mel.
Thank you, folks.